Chapter 402. A Map. Feyre nodded as he took the file from Tai Lei's hand. Thank you. This map was a timely help to him. After all, the Qatar desert was vast, and a clear map was very important. Not only could it save a lot of time, but it could also help him avoid some unnecessary trouble. In addition, the map that Feyre brought from the Scorching Sun sect was also very simple. Most of it was blank, and only a few small tribes were marked. The slightly larger tribes were not recorded, let alone the rumored 5 major tribes. For most of the warriors from the outside world, the location of the 5 major tribes had always been a mystery and was very mysterious. This was because the 5 major tribes did not welcome the warriors from the outside world. They were even very hostile. Therefore, there were very few warriors from the outside world who had been to the 5 major tribes. If not for the map that Tai Lei gave him, Feyre might have to explore the Qatar desert alone for a long time. Goodbye, both of you. Keeping the map, Feyre cupped his hands at the Tai Lei siblings in front of him. Then, he turned and left, flying toward the horizon not far away. Brother, do you think Feyre will be in danger if he goes to the 5 major tribes alone? Looking at Feyre's figure disappearing into the horizon, Tai Xian turned to look at Tai Lei and could not help but ask. Although they had already separated, they still missed each other. It should be fine. Our benefactor's strength is very high. He's a genius that only appears once in 100 years. Moreover, although the 5 major tribes are very hostile to the warriors from the outside world, they have always respected the strong. With our benefactor's strength, he will also receive the respect he deserves there. In the face of Tai Xian's worries, Tai Lei shook his head and sighed. His tanned face revealed some envy. Although he was also a warrior who cultivated origin power, the gap between him and Feyre was very large. Feyre was only about 18 years old, but his origin power cultivation had reached level 3 Martial Master Realm. Moreover, his overall strength was comparable to a level 7 Martial Master Realm expert. At the same time, Dacha Dynasty, in a hall in the palace. Zheng Ji's soul lamp was extinguished. How is this possible? An old man in black was sitting quietly in front of the hall with a surprised expression on his face. 2 young and beautiful palace maids were kneeling on his left and right sides. They were serving him attentively at this moment. Their faces were flushed, and they faintly revealed a hint of charm. They were completely unaware of the change in expression of the old man in black. My lord, what's wrong? At this moment, a palace maid beside him also stood up gently. Then, her jade-like hand wrapped around the black-clothed old man's shoulder. Her tone was lovely and charming. You guys can leave first. Ignoring the palace maid's teasing, the black-clothed old man frowned slightly, as if he was not in the mood to enjoy the bliss of having 2 wives. My lord, please don't be like this. I'll make sure you're satisfied. As if unwilling to leave just like that, the palace maid laughed again. In the next moment, her jade-like hand wantonly reached towards the black-clothed old man's chest, as if she wanted to take another step. Scram! With a cold snort, the black-clothed old man suddenly stood up. At the same time, he emitted a terrifying Yuanli aura. In an instant, the palace maid was sent flying dozens of meters away. Blood splattered everywhere. His old face was filled with coldness and killing intent. This palace maid was just an ordinary person. Naturally, she could not withstand the Yuanli impact from a martial artist. She died on the spot. She did not even have time to scream. My lord, please spare my life. My lord, please spare my life. Seeing the black-clothed old man suddenly fly into a rage and kill someone, the other palace maid's pretty face changed drastically. Then, she quickly knelt down and begged for mercy. Her delicate body trembled like a sieve, and there was no trace of her flirtatious attitude from before. Scram! Ignoring the palace maid who was crying and begging for mercy, the black-clothed old man frowned and said coldly again. Yes, as soon as the voice fell, the palace maid felt as if she had been pardoned. She immediately got up and left the palace, not daring to stay for even a moment. Her face was filled with fear. No matter who you are, since you dared to kill someone from our black demon cave, you will have to pay the price." After the palace maid left, the hall regained its calm. In the next moment, the black-clothed old man took out an extinguished green copper lamp from his sleeve. His turbid eyes were filled with killing intent. After leaving the Thunder Snake tribe, Fei-Ren followed the map and rushed towards the Shuchuo tribe of the 5 great tribes. The 5 great tribes were Paluo, Sha-Di, Fei-Shi, Shuchuo, and Ali. Among them, the Paluo tribe was the leader and had the strongest foundation. The Dili tribe was at the bottom. The overall level of martial artists in the tribe was low. Usually, they did not have much say in the 5 great tribes. Other than that, the overall strength of the other 3 tribes was about the same. As for this trip to the Shuchuo tribe, Fei-Ren also had his own considerations. The Paluo tribe, the leader of the 5 great tribes, had a large population and many martial artists in the tribe. Although it was most likely to obtain clues about the Desert Dynasty's treasure, it was easy for people with ulterior motives to covet it. After all, Fei-Ren was just a foreign martial artist. As for the Sha-Di and Wei-Shi tribes, they were located too far away, deep in the Katar Desert. They were almost cut off from the outside world, and it was hard to find any clues about the treasures of the Desert Dynasty. Therefore, Fei-Ren excluded them. As for the Dili tribe, which was ranked at the bottom, needless to say, it was almost a waste of time. Although the Dili tribe was also known as one of the 5 great tribes, it had long declined. In terms of strength, it could barely be considered a medium-sized tribe, not much stronger than the Thunder Snake tribe. Naturally, it did not know much about the Desert Dynasty's treasure. Therefore, among the 5 great tribes, the Shuchuo tribe, which had a higher acceptance of foreign martial artists and was the most low-key, became Fei-Ren's first choice for this trip. Somewhere in the Katar Desert. Swoosh! In the clouds in the sky, a gray-robed figure streaked across like a meteor, bringing a gust of wind with him at an extremely fast speed. If Tai Lei's map is correct, according to the current speed, I can reach the Shuchuo tribe in at most a day. Looking at the markings on the map in his hand, Fei-Ren was lost in thought. These days, he had been flying at full speed. In order to reach his destination, the Shuchuo tribe as soon as possible, Fei-Ren tried his best to avoid even some desert magical beasts along the way and did not choose to attack. During these days of hurrying, Fei-Ren did not stop cultivating. His Yuan power cultivation, which had just broken through, became more and more consolidated, completely stabilizing at level 3 Martial Master Realm. At the same time, the Dharma 1000 transformation technique also showed signs of a breakthrough. The Dharma 1000 transformation technique had been stagnant at the Great Success Realm for a long time. If he could break through the Great Perfection Realm this time and condense the complete Dharma Golden Buddha body, Fei-Ren's strength would also become stronger, even reaching a terrifying level. Chapter 403. Roar. At this moment, a sharp roar suddenly came from afar like thunder. Magical beast? In the sky, Fei-Ren's figure paused. He also raised his head to look in the direction of the sound. Huff! Huff! A strong wind swept past. Not far away in the sky, a huge white-feathered eagle was soaring. At this moment, a pair of beastly eyes were staring at Fei-Ren, as if it had already seen him as food. Although magical beasts generally did not have high intelligence, they were not stupid. The benefits of devouring a powerful warrior far exceeded that of an ordinary person. It could even help them complete the evolution of their bloodline and transform into a more powerful high-level magical beast. Therefore, the white-feathered eagle in front of him was also staring at Fei-Ren, who was hurrying on his way. This beast, is this young master treating me as prey? Facing the murderous intent of the white-feathered eagle in the sky not far away, Fei-Ren instantly understood in his heart. Although in these days of hurrying on the road, in order to save time, he had tried his best to avoid the habitats of some magical beasts. However, what would come, and killing and fighting were inevitable. It's still not certain who is the prey. Thinking of this, Fei-Ren's face immediately surged with a fierce look. Although the white-feathered eagle in front of him was huge, its magical aura was not very strong. It had barely reached the middle spiritual rank. It was about the same as the purple gold toad, raised by the black-robed old man who had died at his hands. Although Fei Ren's Yuan power cultivation was only at level 3 Martial Master Realm, it was more than enough to deal with a middle spiritual rank magical beast. With his current strength, unless he encountered some top spiritual rank magical beasts with rare bloodline powers, ordinary spiritual rank magical beasts would not be able to hurt him at all. Roar! At this moment, the white-haired eagle took the initiative to launch an attack. It let out a long cry and spread its wings wide open. In an instant, it fanned out a strange demonic wind that swept towards Fei Ren. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The strange demonic wind attack was biting cold like a sharp blade. Even the air emitted an ear-piercing sound of friction. Break! Facing the white-furred eagle's attack, strands of golden essence energy similarly gushed out from Fei Ren's body, and in the next moment, he raised his hand and blasted out a punch. At this moment, he had to rush to the Shotoa tribe, so he naturally couldn't delay here. A mere mid-grade spirit rank magical beast was unable to do anything to him. Boom! Rip! The golden fist force broke through the air, breaking the strange demonic wind in a single exchange, turning it into nothingness. At the same time, the remaining power of the fist force ruthlessly struck the left wing of the white-haired eagle beast, leaving behind a terrifying wound that was visible to the naked eye. Roar! With its left wing injured, the white-feathered eagle let out a miserable shriek. At the same time, its body shook and it almost fell from the sky. The power of Fei Ren's punch was extraordinary. It was enough to kill any human expert below the 6th level of the Martial Master Realm. The white-haired eagle was only a mid-level spirit-ranked demonic beast, so it was naturally difficult for it to resist. Bastard die. After injuring the white-feathered eagle with one punch, Fei Ren followed up with another attack. His figure transformed into an afterimage and disappeared from where he stood. Dharma Fist. The golden fist force cut through the void and instantly condensed into a huge elemental energy dragon, which then rolled towards the white-feathered eagle. In the face of Fei Ren's all-out attack, the white-haired eagle beast was unable to resist at all. In an instant, its head was hit and blood splattered in the sky. At the same time, its body fell to the ground, and it didn't even have time to let out a scream. Whoosh! His left palm stretched out. Just as the corpse of the white-haired eagle beast was about to fall to the ground, Fei Ren took the opportunity to take out the demon core from its body and threw it into the spirit ring. Although the value of a mid-grade spirit rank demon core was far from the value of the Mother Blood Essence Stone, it was still not bad. Although the corpse of the white-haired eagle beast had some value, it was still not as valuable as the demon core. Therefore, Fei Ren did not plan to take the body of the beast and only kept the mid-grade spirit-ranked demon core in his hand. Bang! The huge corpse of the white-haired demon beast fell to the ground, shaking up a cloud of dust. Not long after, a few desert demon beasts that lived underground scuttled out. They seemed to have smelled the scent of blood in the air and immediately began to gnaw on the corpse of the white-haired eagle beast. Not only could demon beasts devour human warriors to increase their demon power and evolve their bloodline, they could also devour others of their own kind. The stronger the devoured person, the more likely it would evolve their bloodline and increase their demon power. In a short while, the corpse of the white-haired eagle beast was completely devoured. Fei Ren's attention was no longer on this place as he continued to rush towards the distant horizon. A day passed. In the distant horizon, an oasis full of vitality and prosperity finally appeared in Fei Ren's line of sight. I've finally arrived. This is one of the 5 major tribes, the Sutuaw tribe. In the sky, looking at the large and prosperous oasis not far in front of him, Fei Ren's somewhat tired eyes revealed a trace of gratification. After these days of hurrying, he had finally arrived at the Sutuaw tribe. The oasis in front of him was extremely vast. As far as the eye could see, it was at least tens of thousands of miles wide. To be able to give birth to such a large oasis in the boundless desert was an extremely rare thing. It could be considered as the uncanny workmanship of nature. And the reason why the Sutawa tribe could develop into one of the 5 major tribes, have a population of tens of millions, and still exist for tens of thousands of years, all originated from the oasis in front of him. After all, in the dry desert, it was impossible to survive without a water source. Swoosh! His figure slowly landed on the ground. For the sake of keeping a low profile, Fei Ren did not choose to enter the Sutawa tribe from the sky to avoid causing a commotion. After all, he was only an outsider warrior. If he directly entered the Sutawa tribe from the sky, it was very likely that he would be treated as an intruder due to his unknown origin. That would cause unnecessary battles and trouble. Although Fei Ren's strength could look down on all heroes and did not fear anyone below the 8th level of the Martial Master realm, it was difficult for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. With his strength alone, it was not enough to fight against the entire Sutawa tribe. Fei Ren still knew this in his heart. He was not arrogant to the point of looking down on everyone. "Who are you?" Before they even stepped into the Sutawa tribe, they were welcomed by a young man and a young woman. The young man looked towards Fei Ren and asked in a puzzled voice. Not only was the other party dressed differently from them, but his face was also very unfamiliar. He was not from the Sutawa tribe. "I am Fei Ren. I came from somewhere else and plan to do some business here." Faced with the young man's questioning, Fei Ren did not mind. He cupped his hands and smiled. To the tribes of the Katar Desert, experts and merchants had always been guests. Hence, he had made up a fake merchant identity. "Business? Hey, Sister Z, it's been a long time since an outsider has appeared in our tribe." Hearing this, the young man was stunned. His face was filled with surprise. Then he looked at his female companion beside him. Chapter 404. ALV-3 Martial Master El Merchant. At this time, the young girl named Sister Z also sized up Fei Ren in front of her, her eyes filled with astonishment. The other party had LV-3 Martial Master Realm cultivation at such a young age. His talent was not inferior to some of the top geniuses in their tribe. Such a genius warrior was just a merchant passing by. At this moment, the young girl had some doubts in her heart and even some disbelief. Although their Shichuo tribe was one of the 5 major tribes, it was at the bottom and kept a low profile. In the past, there were not many warriors from the outside world who came to the tribe to do business. Therefore, the young man and his female companion were so surprised to see Fei Ren. Speaking of which, it was the first time the 2 of them had seen a warrior from the outside world. "Your strength is extraordinary. May I know what business you plan to do in our Shichuo tribe?" The young man also cupped his hands and grinned, his tone respectful. His LV 7-star realm cultivation was only around LV 7-star realm. Compared to Fei Ren in front of him, it could be said that the strong would be respected everywhere. "Small business, not worth mentioning." Shaking his head, Fei Ren deliberately kept him in suspense. "Your Excellency, walk a few dozen miles north from here. There's a trading market there. Most of the warriors from the outside world who came to our tribe to do business in the past would go there." Seeing that the other party was unwilling to tell him his origin, the young man gave up asking. He then opened his mouth, as if he wanted to do a small favor. "Thank you for telling me." Fei Ren cupped his hands and said. Then, he immediately left and headed towards the north. "Sister Z, I'm sure that this person must be from one of the top sects in the outside world." Looking at Fei Ren's back, the young man sighed. At the age of 18, he already had LV-3 Martial Master Realm cultivation. In the outside world, only the talented juniors of the powerful sects and families could do so. "Big brother, compared to him, you are indeed far behind." As her voice fell, the young girl also chuckled with a trace of ridicule on her face. Then, she turned around and walked away. "Sister Z, wait for me." After saying that, the young man scratched his head and immediately followed. Shichuo Tribe, Trading Market. I didn't expect this place to be so lively. Looking at the bustling market in front of him, Fei Ren was surprised. There were stalls everywhere, and most of them were local people and martial artists. There were very few martial artists from the outside world like him. Are you a martial artist from the outside world? Not long after walking around the market, a skinny young man with a face full of pockmarks also came forward and looked at Fei Ren with a smile. That's right, what can I do for you? Fei Ren was not surprised by the sudden appearance of the pockmarked youth and nodded his head. His attire did not resemble that of the people of the Shichuo tribe, and his face was unfamiliar, so it was easy for him to attract attention in the bustling marketplace. My name is Old Six. I've lived here since I was young, so I'm most familiar with the market. I should be able to help you. The pockmarked young man chuckled and spoke in a probing tone. Oh, I want to get some information. Faced with someone taking the initiative to come knocking on his door, Fei Ren did not refuse and said, there were many people at the stalls in the market. Other than buying and selling goods, it was also a good place to gather information. If he was lucky, he might be able to obtain some secret information about the treasures of the Desert Dynasty. Gathering information is my specialty. However, these sources of information are precious, and I need a little bit of it. Hearing this, the pockmarked young man named Old Six rubbed his hands again, hesitating to speak. There are 100 low-grade primordial stones here. Is that enough? As an experienced person, Fei Ren naturally knew what the other party meant. He immediately took out a small cloth bag from his bosom and threw it to the pockmarked youth. It really is a low-grade primordial stone. 100. Opening the small cloth bag, the pockmarked youth's eyes suddenly widened as they flickered with light. Surprisingly, there were 100 low-grade primordial stones of all sizes. Thank you, sir. He quickly kept the small cloth bag. The next moment, the pockmarked youth pinched his face and smiled. At the same time, he said, I have a lot of information here. I even have some information about some outside of the tribe. What kind of information do you want to find out? Have you heard of the Desert Dynasty? Fei Ren said lightly, his eyes sharp. For the current 100 low-grade primordial stones were nothing at all. Only middle-grade primordial stones could catch his eye. Desert Dynasty. Hearing this, the pockmarked youth was first stunned. Then, he frowned and fell in a deep thought, as if he was searching for the little knowledge in his mind. You don't know? Then forget it. A few minutes later, seeing that the pockmarked youth was still standing there with a confused face, Fei Ren also gave up asking. Originally, he came with the idea of trying his luck. The pockmarked youth in front of him did not have a high cultivation, only about the 8th level of the Middle Union realm. Moreover, at a glance, he was a small figure who lived at the bottom of the Shichuo tribe. It was understandable that he did not know about these legends from 10,000 years ago. Wait, however, just as Fei Ren was about to leave, the pockmarked youth, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly spoke. When I was very young, I once heard that the Desert Dynasty used to be a supreme existence that ruled the entire Qatar desert 10,000 years ago. After that, thousands of years later, with the fall of the emperor, the Desert Dynasty gradually fell apart and walked towards its end. Although the Desert Dynasty is gone, it left behind a huge treasure. As for the whereabouts of these treasures, I guess only the elders in the tribe know a thing or two about it. I don't know if this information is useful to you. Scratching his head, the pockmarked youth said cryptically. He seemed to have racked his brains and poured out all the insights he knew. After all, he had taken Fei Ren's 100 low-grade primordial stones for nothing. If he did nothing, his reputation in the trading market would be damaged in the future. Perhaps if others saw it, they would not ask him for information. As expected, thank you. Although the pockmarked youth did not give much information, it was enough. As long as Fei Ren found the elders of the Shichuo tribe, he would have a chance to find out the real information about the Desert Dynasty's treasure. Ha! You actually believe the nonsense of this gambler. How laughable. At this moment, a mocking laughter came from afar. Then, a tall and burly middle-aged man with a heavy hammer on his back walked over. He looked at Fei Ren with eyes full of disdain. Am I being despised? Looking at the middle-aged man who suddenly appeared in front of him, Fei Ren narrowed his eyes. From the other party's eyes and tone, he could indeed see a trace of disdain. Chapter 405. That's interesting. The middle-aged man in front of him was surrounded by surging energy. His eyes were as sharp as blades. At the same time, his origin energy fluctuations were also extraordinary. He had already reached the 5th level of the Martial Master realm and seemed to be an expert of the Shotoa tribe. Although the middle-aged man's strength was not bad, he was not a threat to Fei Ren. With Fei Ren's current strength, anyone below level 7 Martial Master was no match for him. Meng Tu, at the side, the pockmarked young man's expression changed slightly in the face of the middle-aged man who had appeared out of nowhere. He seemed to have recognized the other party's origin. The middle-aged man's name was Meng Tuesday. Not only did he have a level 5 Martial Master cultivation, but he was also one of the Elder Guards of the Shichuo tribe. What was an Elder Guard? As the name implied, it was a guard responsible for the safety of the tribe's elders. The Shichuo tribe had tens of millions of people, but there were only a few dozen elders. These elders held the inheritance and secrets of the Shichuo tribe. They usually lived in the sacred place of the Shichuo tribe and were protected by a large group of elder guards. As for Meng Tu, he was one of the many guards. As an elder's guard, other than patrolling and changing shifts, that basically had nothing to do. Therefore, Meng Tu would often come to the trading market to try to find some treasures. Old Six, other than this foreign kid, no one in the trading market will listen to your nonsense. I think you have no money for drinking and gambling, so you came out to cheat people again, right? Meng Tu looked away from Fei Run and looked at the pockmarked youth called Old Six. He sneered, and his eyes were still full of disdain. Although the other party's cultivation was not high and his status was low, he was known by most people, including Meng Tu, because he had been hanging around the trading market all year round and occasionally asked for things from some outside warriors who passed by. So he's a hooligan. After being stunned for a moment, Fei Rin looked at the pockmarked youth beside him with a thoughtful expression. The other party was not too old and seemed to be only 26 or 27 years old. However, his Yuan power cultivation was indeed unsightly and was only around level 8 Middle Union realm. With such a cultivation level, even if he was placed in a small tribe like the Thunder Snake tribe, let alone in the 5 great tribes like the Shichuo tribe, he would still be a weak chicken. Now, he finally understood why the pockmarked youth's cultivation was so weak. Other than his own low talent, there were other objective reasons. Meng Tu, don't slander me. When did I ever lie? Everything I said was the truth. At this moment, when faced with Meng Tu's question, the pockmarked young man's face flushed red. He raised his voice and seemed to be slightly exasperated. It was true that he had done a lot of swindling in the trading market over the years, but he had his own principles when it came to information. No matter how poor he was, the pockmarked youth would never sell false information to others. This was one of his principles. What bullsh *T treasure legend? As a guard of the elders, how come I have never heard of this matter? However, Meng Tu crossed his arms and said disdainfully after the pockmarked young man finished speaking. To him, the pockmarked youth in front of him was just a weak ant. Naturally, the words of an ant could not be trusted. As if he did not want to talk nonsense with the other party, Meng Tu suddenly stretched out his hand and clenched his fist. Then he said coldly, "Old Six, if I see you lying again, don't blame me for being rude." Meng Tu, even though there were 10,000 vulgarities in his heart, the pockmarked youth did not dare to blurt them out. He could only hold it in as his face flushed red. After all, the other party was one of the elders' guards. His cultivation level was high. A mere middle and high-level martial artist like him was no match for him. If he dared to make a move, he would be courting death. Silly boy, did you hear that? He's just a drunken gambler. You actually believe this guy's nonsense. What a joke. Meng Tu said indifferently as his gaze shifted and landed on Fei Run beside him. Not only was the other party a martial artist from the outside world, but he had also stepped into the martial master realm at such a young age. It was precisely because of this that he attracted his attention. "Oh, I don't think so." Fei Ren shook his head as his voice fell. "What?" Seeing this, Meng Tu's expression froze. Then, his eyes narrowed into slits as his expression gradually turned serious. Originally, he thought that the other party would suddenly come to his senses. He did not expect that Fei Run would actually believe the news of the Desert Dynasty's treasure from the pockmarked youth. Boy, do you think I'm lying to you? Ignorance is blameless. Ignoring Meng Tu's questioning, Fei Run immediately turned around and said indifferently, intending to leave the trading market. Now that he had obtained enough useful information, the elders of the Shichuo tribe might know some secrets about the Desert Dynasty's treasure. Naturally, he would not stay here any longer. Moreover, there were no treasures that Fei Run was interested in the stalls of the trading market. Boy, stop right there. Seeing that Fei Run ignored his words and turned around to leave, Meng Tu's expression changed slightly. At the same time, his figure flashed and landed in front of the other party. Do you still have something to say? Faced with Meng Tu blocking his way, Fei Run first frowned and then said coldly, now that he was in the Shichuo tribe, unless he had no other choice, he did not want to hurt anyone. Although Meng Tu in front of him had a level 5 martial master cultivation base, he was not a match for him. It's over, it's over. This boy is going to be unlucky. He actually dared to provoke Meng Tu. I heard that Meng Tu is not only one of the Elder's guards, but he is also very powerful. Even those ferocious wolves, tigers, and leopard from the outside world were torn apart by him. It's terrifying. Look, that boy seems to be from the outside world. Are all the warriors from the outside world so stubborn? Meng Tu has a very bad temper. If an ordinary person provokes him, it's tantamount to courting death. At this time, in the face of the gradually burning smell of gunpowder in the air, the surrounding warriors also cast their gazes in this direction. For a moment, there was a lot of discussion, and some of them had pity in their eyes. It's fine. I'm just curious about who you are and why you came to the Shichuo tribe to inquire about the treasure. Meng Tu's gaze was as sharp as a sword as he snorted coldly. It seemed that he did not want to let Fei Run leave so easily. It's none of your business. Get out of the way. In the face of Meng Tu's imposing aura, Fei Run's expression was still calm as he said lightly, he was not a kind man. If the other party insisted on blocking the way, he did not mind letting Meng Tu experience the fear of approaching death. Sir, Meng Tu is one of the Elder's guards, a level 5 martial master expert. Let's apologize quickly. Meng Tu, it's all my fault. If you have something to say, let's talk nicely. Don't fight. At this time, seeing that the two sides were about to attack at the slightest disagreement, the pockmarked youth scrambled over in a panic and tried to persuade them to stop. Chapter 406. Get out of my way, or I'll take care of you too. Meng Tu frowned and shouted coldly in the face of the pockmarked youth's persuasion. Originally, he was only curious about Fei Run, but the other party did not seem to take him seriously. As one of the few level 5 martial master experts in the Shotoa tribe, Meng Tu naturally could not tolerate the other party's contempt. Brat, I'd like to see what you're capable of. The thought of teaching Fei Run a lesson arose in his heart, and the aura on Meng Tu's body became more and more piercingly cold. At this moment, in the face of Meng Tu's threat, the pockmarked youth immediately shrank and retreated to the back in fear. He seemed to be very afraid that the other party would make a move. After all, the other party was one of the Elder's guards, a level 5 martial master expert. It would be as easy to kill him as crushing an ant. You want to fight? Looking up at Meng Tu, Fei Run's body also surged with an extraordinary origin power fluctuation, and his gaze was as sharp as a knife. Level 3 martial master? Narrowing his eyes, Meng Tu sensed the surging origin power fluctuation on the other party's body like an ocean, and his heart skipped a beat. Just as he had expected, Fei Run was also a martial master expert, and his cultivation was not low. Humph! Good boy, your strength is indeed not weak. You're worthy of me making a move. With a cold snort, Meng Tu's expression was serious. In the next moment, he raised his hand and grabbed Fei Run's shoulder. Origin power surged in his palm like a fierce tiger pouncing on its prey. Although the other party's origin power cultivation was at level 3 martial master, there was a difference of 2 levels between them. With the advantage of the level, Meng Tu's confidence multiplied. He wanted to capture Fei Run in one move and end the battle. Swoosh! In the face of Meng Tu's violent attack, Fei Run also reacted quickly and raised his hand to punch out. Bang! Rumble! Origin power swept out, and the fist force exploded. Accompanied by a gust of wind, Fei Ren's fist fiercely collided with Meng Tu's palm in the next moment. Immediately, an endless rumbling sound rang out. Two different types of powerful origin energy also exploded at this moment, causing a shockwave to spread outwards. Shwa! Meng Tu's body shot back explosively, leaving behind deep footprints along the way. At this moment, Meng Tu finally managed to stop his body with great difficulty, and his expression became extremely shocked. This kid, how did he do it? Raising his eyes to look at Fei Run, who was not far away, Meng Tu's face suddenly flushed red. In the next moment, a trace of blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. It seemed that he had suffered quite a bit of injury in the head-on clash earlier. On the other hand, Fei Ren's face was still as calm as ever. He didn't seem to have suffered any injuries. I didn't expect this big guy to be so strong, but you can't beat me with brute force alone. Withdrawing his fist, Fei Ren slowly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. His body was like an immovable iron bell, standing in the same place without retreating half an inch. Although Meng Tu was born with extraordinary strength and was a level 5 martial master expert, he was still no match for him. Moreover, even the black-robed old man who had wreaked havoc in the Thunder Snake tribe had died in Fei Ren's hands with hatred, not to mention Meng Tu, who was only a level 5 martial master. Although Meng Tu's strength was not bad, compared to the black-robed old man who was a level 7 martial master, he was still too far away. Not only was the other party a demon cultivator, but he also had many spiritual level demon pets under his command. He had extremely rich combat experience. How is this possible? Meng Tu was defeated, and he was defeated by a level 3 martial master young man. That kid seems to be a martial artist from the outside world. He's not from the Shichuo tribe. Could it be that he's a top genius from an outside sect? At this moment, seeing Meng Tu vomiting blood and retreating, the expressions of the surrounding spectators changed slightly. The next moment, they looked at each other as if they were in disbelief. This person's strength is actually so strong. Even Meng Tu is no match for him. Not far away, the pockmarked youth who had quietly retreated to the side was also completely stunned. His eyes were wide open. Originally, he thought that Fei Run would be in trouble. He would inevitably be taught a lesson by Meng Tu, or even lose his life. However, reality slapped him hard in the face. Not only was Meng Tu, who was a level 5 martial master, no match for Fei Run, he was also blasted back by the other party's punch and vomited blood. I don't want to fight. Don't provoke me. Rubbing his wrist, Fei Run immediately retracted the origin power around him and looked at the horrified Meng Tu not far away. Under his feet was the territory of the Shichuo tribe. In order to find out about the Desert Dynasty's treasure, Fei Ren did not want to incur the Shichuo tribe's hatred. After all, the elders of the Shichuo tribe might know some information about the Desert Dynasty's treasure. Since he had a favor to ask, he had to stop when it came to it. Arrogant, I was just careless just now. However, in the face of Fei Ren's initiative to make peace, Meng Tu did not bite at all. His face was filled with anger. Have a taste of my hammer. With a roar, Meng Tu charged out again. At the same time, he reached for the heavy hammer behind him and swung it toward Fei Ren's face. Compared to using brute force, Meng Tu was more proficient in using heavy hammers. This could also raise his strength to a higher level. Swoosh! The heavy hammer broke through the air and attacked Fei Ren in the blink of an eye. The attack was biting cold and had the momentum to kill in one blow. You're courting death. His eyes were cold. In the face of Meng Tu's attack, a wisp of unknown anger surged in Fei Ren's heart. Originally, he had planned to let the other party go. Otherwise, the punch just now would have been enough to take Meng Tu's life. However, the other party was not going to let him go. This also completely stimulated Fei Ren's ruthlessness. Dharma Fist, golden origin power instantly swept out. A large amount of scarlet golden light descended like divine soldiers and enveloped Fei Ren's body. For a moment, it was blinding and dazzling. Although the Dharma Fist was still at the great completion realm, as his origin power cultivation broke through to the level 3 martial master realm, the power of this self-created martial art of Fei Ren's had increased again. It was comparable to a true level 6 martial art. Moreover, now that he was completely enraged, Fei Ren did not show any mercy. A large amount of origin power surged out like an ocean and covered the sky and earth. What kind of fist technique is this? What a shocking aura! Could it be a level 6 martial art? Around them, the eyes of the crowd were completely dazed and even turned into shock. Bang! Rumble! In the crowd's shocked eyes, the golden fist force violently collided with the heavy hammer. In the next moment, the fist force suddenly exploded. The heavy hammer in Meng Tu's hand was also sent flying. It was as if it could not withstand the impact of the shocking force and crashed to the ground. What? Feeling a sharp pain from the web between his thumb and index finger, Meng Tu's expression was filled with shock. His opponent's strength was actually several times stronger than before. Boom! Rumble! Before Meng Tu could react, the remaining power of the golden fist force violently bombarded his chest. At the same time, his body was instantly sent flying. Along the way, he crashed into countless stalls and blood splattered in all directions. In the end, he slowly stopped. Pucci! A mouthful of black blood was spat out. In the next moment, Meng Tu also knelt on the ground. The aura on his body suddenly became incomparably weak, as if he was a cripple. Chapter 407. So strong. That was the last thought in his mind. In the next moment, Meng Tu's vision turned black, and he fainted on the spot. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. If not for Meng Tu's strong physique, which far exceeded that of an ordinary warrior, Fei Ren's punch would have been enough to take his life. Get out of the way! Get out of the way! Not far away, there was a sudden clamor. Then, a few elders and guards with powerful auras who had also reached the martial master realm flew over. Swoosh! Swoosh! When they landed, everyone's eyes were fixed on Fei Ren. Earlier, when the two of them were fighting, the commotion in the trading market had attracted the attention of some experts from the Shichuo tribe. 3 level 4 martial masters and 1 level 6 martial master. Sensing the strong, Yuanli aura of the elders and guards in front of him, Fei Ren raised his eyebrows slightly. Although there were 4 people on the other side, they were all below level 7 martial master realm and could not do anything to him. Kid, this is the Shichuo tribe. An outsider like you can't behave atrociously here. Seeing Meng Tu lying on the side with serious injuries and no one knew whether he was dead or alive, a young-looking elder guard stepped forward and said sternly, "Behave atrociously? I didn't behave atrociously." He asked for it. Fei Ren glanced at the elder's guard who had spoken up and said indifferently as he retracted his hand, "What?" As his voice fell, the elder guard frowned slightly. There was a faint trace of dissatisfaction on his face, but he did not act rashly. Fei Ren's strength was not ordinary. Previously, he had defeated Meng Tu, who was at level 5 martial master realm, with 1 punch. Naturally, he was very afraid of him. Moreover, the elder guard's cultivation was only at level 4 martial master realm. His strength was slightly weaker than Meng Tu, so he did not dare to fight with Fei Ren alone. "Captain, this kid is too arrogant. Not only did he hit someone, but he also turned around and did not admit it." Beside him, another elder guard also leaned forward and spoke to a middle-aged man in a beast robe with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. His tone was indignant. It seemed that the other party was the leader of this tribe, and his cultivation had reached LV6 martial master realm. Although this person's Yuanli cultivation is only at level 3 martial master realm, his strength is not weaker than mine. Hearing this, the middle-aged man in the beast robe narrowed his eyes and said with a serious tone, As a 6th-level martial master, his perception was not weak. Furthermore, with Meng Tu as an example, he naturally knew that Fei Run was not someone to be trifled with. How is this possible? This kid's strength is not weaker, Captain. As Fei Rin's voice faded, the faces of the elders and guards changed. They looked at each other in dismay, as if they couldn't believe that Fei Run was so strong. If you want to block my way, then don't blame me for being rude. Yuanli was I. Yuanli's to the end you? Right now, he still had to find out about the treasures of the Desert Dynasty, so he did not have the time to argue with the middle-aged man in the beast robe and the group of elders and guards in front of him. What's all the ruckus about? Just as Fei Ren was confronting the middle-aged man in the beast robe, a thunderous cold voice came from the sky. Chuan. A gust of wind whistled past, and an old man with sparse hair dressed in a light black robe walked through the air. Although the old man in the black robe was thin and small, his body seemed to contain boundless power. He emitted an abyss-like Yuanli aura, and his every move was extremely domineering. No one dared to underestimate him. Third Elder. Seeing the old man in the black robe appear, the faces of the middle-aged man in the beast robe and the elders changed. They immediately knelt down as if they had seen their spiritual leader. Third Elder. Welcome, Third Elder. In addition, the martial artists who had set up stalls near the trading market also cupped their hands and greeted him in unison. Their faces were filled with respect. This old man is so strong. Third Elder, huh? Looks like he's the honorable elder of the Shichuo tribe. I wonder if he knows about the Desert Dynasty's treasure. Fei Rin's gaze landed on the old man in the black robe, not far away. Immediately, his eyes narrowed and his expression turned solemn. Not only was the other party's strength extraordinary, far surpassing his own, but he also seemed to have quite a bit of prestige in the Shichuo tribe. After all, to be able to make the surrounding martial artists submit to him, it was obvious that he had a high status and was not an ordinary expert of the tribe. I was wondering what had happened. So you guys are fighting with a little kid. He looked up at Fei Run and glanced at the unconscious Meng Tu from the corner of his eye. At this moment, the old man in the black robe seemed to have understood the ins and outs of the matter as he stroked his beard and said indifferently. The black-robed elder's name was Kubilai, and his strength was extremely high. He was already at the 9th level of the martial master realm. At the same time, he was one of the 5 elders of the Shotoa tribe and was ranked 3rd. Normally, he would be addressed as the Third Elder. Third Elder. This person has no respect for the law. As a martial artist from the outside world, not only did he speak arrogantly, he even openly attacked and injured people in the Shichuo tribe. Lord Elder, please uphold justice for us. At this moment, the middle-aged man in the beast robe who was kneeling on the ground slowly stood up. At the same time, he cupped his hands towards Kubilai and spoke with an angry tone. Although he was not a match for Fei Run, Kubilai could easily deal with Fei Rin. After all, Kubilai was an authentic 9th-level martial master expert. Senior, I did not attack anyone. I was only protecting myself. Otherwise, that big guy called Meng Tu would not have just fainted. Seeing that the middle-aged man in the beast robe was the first to complain, Fei Rin frowned and then coldly laughed. He was not bragging. With his current strength, killing Meng Tu, who was at the 5th level of the martial master realm, was as easy as killing an ant. Enough. I already know the ins and outs of the matter. There is no need for you to say anything more. Kubilai coldly snorted as he said plainly, as if he did not care about the middle-aged man in the beast robe's complaint. At the same time, he looked at Fei Run with a trace of curiosity. When Meng Tu and Fei Run were fighting, he had witnessed the entire process. Naturally, he knew that Fei Rin did not come to the Shichuo tribe to cause trouble. Instead, he had other intentions. All of you can leave. I have my own decisions. Kubilai waved his sleeve and spoke with a calm tone. This Third Elder, seeing that Kubilai did not intend to blame Fei Run, the middle-aged man in the beast robe was stunned. He then stepped forward as if he wanted to say more bad things about Fei Rin. You guys, do you not understand what I'm saying? Kublai coldly looked at the middle-aged man in the beast robe and the guards as he spoke with a cold tone. Yes, this subordinate will leave. Seeing this scene, the middle-aged man in the beast robe shivered inwardly. He then hurriedly left with his subordinates, not daring to go against Kublai's orders. After all, they were merely guards while Kublai was the third elder of the Shichuo tribe. If they angered him, the consequences would be unimaginable. Chapter 408. Kid, what's your name? After everyone left, Kublai Khan turned to look at Fei Run and said, "Don't worry." Although Kublai was not a member of the Shichuo tribe and was an outsider, Fei Rin's talent and strength had caught his attention. At that moment, Kublai's heart was filled with admiration for Lin Fan. After all, the other party had defeated Meng Tu, who was a level 5 martial master, with his level 3 martial master cultivation. Furthermore, it had been effortless. Such talent and strength were rare even among the younger generation of the Shotoa tribe. Not only in the Shichuo tribe, but even in the other 4 tribes, geniuses and experts were always respected and cared for. Junior Fei Run greets third elder. Faced with Kublai's question, Fei Rin cupped his hands. Kublai did not have any ill intentions, and Lin Fan was well aware of that. Furthermore, Kublai was a level 9 martial master, and Lin Fan was no match for him. Therefore, Fei Rin's attitude became more respectful. After all, Lin Fan knew his own strength, and he might need to ask Kublai about the Desert Dynasty's treasure. Naturally, he did not want to ruin their relationship. Fei Rin, you are very strong. You must be a young genius from some big family or top sect, right? Kublai nodded his head and stroked his beard. He looked at Fei Rin and thought for a moment. Lin Fan was very young and was only around 18 years old. At such a young age, he was already a level 3 martial master, and his strength far surpassed his peers. He was a true martial arts genius. Furthermore, there was a high chance that he came from some big family or top sect. After all, it took a lot of cultivation resources to nurture a martial arts genius. Ordinary small families or low sects would not be able to nurture a true martial arts genius. You flatter me. I am from the Scorching Sun sect, Fei Rin said straightforwardly in response to Kublai's probing. The Scorching Sun sect behind him was the overlord of the Eastern Sun region, one of the few 6th-grade sects in the southeastern region. There was no need to keep them in suspense. Moreover, Fei Rin had another plan in mind. With the reputation and prestige of a 6th-grade sect, he might be able to get some benefits from the Shichuo tribe. He might even get some clues about the treasures of the Desert Dynasty, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Scorching Sun sect, a 6th-grade sect. The Scorching Sun sect? Hearing this, Kublai's expression was slightly surprised as he asked. Although he had already expected this, he was still a little surprised to hear it with his own ears. After all, a 6th-grade sect was already a colossal existence to the Shichuo tribe. Back when the Desert Dynasty was still around, the strength of the 5 major tribes in the Cartel Desert could not compare to a 6th-grade sect. Among the 5 great tribes, only the leading Paluo tribe had the strength to contend with a 6th-ranked sect. The other 4 tribes were in decline. Their strength was about the same as a 7th-ranked sect in the outside world. Therefore, facing Fei Rin, who came from the Scorching Sun sect, Kublai was very surprised. Fei Rin, boy, you come from the Scorching Sun sect and are a rare martial arts genius. Why have you come to the Shichuo tribe? Kublai calmed himself down and asked. As a martial arts genius from a 6th-grade sect, he naturally would not come to the Shichuo tribe for no reason. There had to be a reason. Could it be that this boy also knows about that matter? A thought suddenly appeared in Kublai's mind as he raised his eyebrows. Third elder, there are too many people here. What I want to say might not be convenient. Fei Rin grinned as he sent a message to Kublai. Although the beast-robed middle-aged man and the guards had left, there were still many people in the market. From time to time, a few martial artists would look over in surprise. After all, Fei Rin was facing Kublai, the 3rd elder of the Shichuo tribe. He was powerful and had a high position. It was difficult for him to keep a low profile. I understand. Kid, Come with me, first. Hearing this, Kublai immediately understood and flew into the sky towards the depths of the Shichuo tribe. In the next moment, Fei Rin followed, closely behind. Deep within the Shichuo tribe, in a courtyard. Boy, can you just say what you want to say now? Kublai raised his hand and circulated his origin energy. He then created an origin energy formation that was invisible to the naked eye and spread outwards. At the same time, it covered the entire courtyard as if it could block out any sound waves. It was invisible and formless. The power of a formation. This old man is indeed powerful. Seeing Kublai's little trick, Fei Rin's eyes also flashed with surprise. Although the formation that Kublai set up was only a normal mid-yellow level sound barrier, it was not something that a normal martial artist could set up. Only someone with mental energy at the 4th level of the profound martial realm, or above, and someone who was skilled in formations could set up such a formation. Then I'll just say it. After taking a deep breath, Fei Rin calmed himself down and said, 10,000 years ago, there was a powerful dynasty that ruled the area around the Cauldron Desert. The outside world called it the Desert Dynasty. Although I don't know much about the Desert Dynasty, I heard that it once left behind a huge treasure. This treasure was guarded by the 5 tribes under its command. As time passed, it seemed that the treasure had not been excavated. Good boy, so you're also here to ask about the treasure. Before he finished speaking, Kublai narrowed his eyes and shook his head as if he had expected this. Third Elder, why did you say also? Seeing Kublai's reaction, Fei Rin awkwardly rubbed his nose. It seemed that before him, someone had already asked about the Desert Dynasty's treasure. Boy, about a month ago, a strange woman wearing a purple robe came to the Shichuo tribe. That purple-robed woman's strength was extremely powerful and terrifying. Even this old man has lived for so many years and has never seen anything like it. Back then, that purple-robed woman only used one move, and the 5 elders of the Shichuo tribe were all defeated. She was just like you, wanting to ask about the Desert Dynasty's treasure. Kublai sighed as he gave a mocking smile. There was a trace of fear in his voice, as if the purple-robed woman was a red, refining azura. Purple-robed woman? Could it be her? Hearing this, Fei Rin's expression froze before his eyes widened, as if he had remembered something from the past. Back then, that purple figure, that purgatory scene of corpses and seas of blood. Fei Rin's mind was filled with all sorts of thoughts, as if they were just yesterday. They lingered in his mind for a long time. If it really is her, then this young master has met his nemesis. Thinking to there, Fei Rin's fists under his sleeves tightly clenched. Chapter 409. A few years ago, at the Iron Palm sect. Boy, remember my name, Night Demon Fairy. If you're not happy with me, you can take revenge in the future. In the sky, a beautiful figure dressed in purple left, leaving behind a blood-red ground. Such a simple sentence was as heavy as a mountain, and it pressed down on Fei Rin's heart for a long time without dissipating. For the past few years, he had been desperately cultivating in order to prove himself, to wash away his shame, and at the same time, to seek an explanation for the deaths of the Iron Palm School's fellow disciples. Night Demon Fairy, if it's really you, I will defeat you with my own hands. After letting out a deep breath, Fei Rin's expression became serious. Back then, she had wiped out more than half of the Iron Palm sect. Even though the Night Demon Fairy had stopped in time, she had only killed Elder Wu Tai and disciple Wang Lingyun. However, the countless lives of the Iron Palm sect, as well as how weak and humiliated he had been, were things that Fei Rin had not forgotten, and they had become a demon in his heart. He had to defeat her personally to get rid of this demon in his heart. Boy, what's wrong? At this moment, Kublai seemed to have noticed that something was off with Fei Rin's expression, and he spoke with a confused tone. It's nothing. Third Elder, please continue. Fei Rin shook his head as he regained his senses and let out a hollow laugh. He could not explain his relationship with the Night Demon Fairy in a short amount of time. Furthermore, Fei Rin didn't really want to talk about his past with outsiders. He was the only one who could get rid of his inner demons. Where was this old man just now? That's right, that violet-robed woman also asked about the Desert Dynasty's treasure. Fortunately, she is not a murderous person. After she finished inquiring about the treasure, she turned around and left. Speaking to there, Kublai still felt a bit of fear. Damn it, just how monstrous was that woman's strength? Fei Ren clenched his fists when he saw the change in the other party's expression. To be able to make Kublai, who is a 9th-level martial master, feel fear, and even the 5 elders of the Shotowa tribe were no match for her. This was enough to show the terrifying strength of the Night Demon Fairy. Third Elder, according to what you've said, you must also know the specific information about the treasure? Fei Ren retracted his thoughts and asked. The fact that the other party was able to leak the information to the Night Demon Fairy meant that they knew something about the treasure. That's right. Although our Shuchuo tribe also has information about the treasure, it is only a part of it. If we want to truly obtain the huge treasure left behind by the Desert Dynasty, we need the joint efforts of the 5 major tribes. It's just that the 5 tribes are no longer the same as before. It is incredibly difficult for them to work together. Kublai sighed as he thought back to the past. What do you mean? Hearing this, Fei Ren was puzzled. It seemed that there was something else behind the Desert Dynasty's treasure. Back then, after the emperor passed away, because the prime minister and the crown prince fought for the throne, there was chaos everywhere, and the various tribes continuously killed each other. The tribes that supported the crown prince and the tribes that served the prime minister each had their own interests. These tribes did not hesitate to pay any price to kill each other for their own benefits. The Desert Empire, which had been at the peak of its power, declined and perished in just a few short decades due to all kinds of turmoil. After that, these tribes gradually died out or were swallowed up by other tribes. Our 5 great tribes are no longer the 5 great tribes of the past. The 5 great tribes of the past have long since perished. We have only inherited the legacies of the past, as well as the grudges and grudges. Kublai sighed as he bitterly smiled, as if he did not want to talk about this. So that's how the Desert Dynasty perished back then. Fei Ren sighed as he shook his head. He had thought that the Desert Dynasty had been destroyed by a powerful martial artist, but the truth was that they had killed each other. As expected, where there were people, there would be Jianghu, and where there were Jianghu, there would be fighting and killing. Just like in the Dacha dynasty, in order to obtain the throne, King Jin, Chu Wan, killed his brother and massacred the royal family in order to establish his authority. Yes, after the Desert Dynasty was destroyed, a large number of treasures were left behind. His Majesty's corpse and martial arts inheritance were all buried in the ancestral mausoleum. Only those who possess the ancient Golden Crow's fortune or those who have 5 keys to open the mausoleum can enter the ancestral mausoleum and know everything. Back then, because the 5 major tribes were fighting for their own interests, supporting the crown prince and the prime minister respectively, the 5 keys to open the mausoleum have yet to be gathered. And the chosen one with the fortune of the ancient Golden Crow has yet to appear. As such, even though the 5 major tribes have been guarding the information about the treasures, we still know nothing about the treasures within the ancestral tomb. Kublai nodded. Now that the news about the treasures had spread, there was nothing for him to hide. Moreover, if they could not gather the 5 keys, even if they knew the location of the treasures in the ancestral tomb, they would not be able to enter, let alone obtain the martial arts legacies of the Desert Dynasty's legendary emperor. Do we need to gather the 5 keys? Hearing this, Fei Ren's expression became serious. Just as Kublai had said, the 5 keys were controlled by the 5 major tribes, and the Shuchuo tribe only had 1 key. The 5 major tribes had many grudges between them, and it had been nearly 10,000 years. If they wanted to work together and give up the keys, it would be quite difficult to find the treasures of the Desert Dynasty. After all, grudges and conflicts could not be set aside with just a few words. As for the chosen one with the ancient Golden Crow fate, it was even more difficult. Even though Fei Ren did not know what the ancient Golden Crow fate was, he was not stupid. He knew that anyone who could obtain the power of fate would become a powerful expert in the future. He had read about this in some ancient books, such as the overlord of the Eastern continent, the Great Ming Dynasty. The ancestor of the Yi clan, who founded the Great Ming Empire and the Yi clan, possessed the fate of the true dragon. The true dragon fate was not any weaker than the ancient Golden Crow fate that Kublai spoke of. It was also a power of fate that was rarely seen in 1,000 years. If the person who had it did not die prematurely, they would become an emperor in the future. After all, behind the Great Ming Dynasty, the Yi clan was a rank 5 clan. For the Yi ancestor to be able to create a rank 5 clan and a powerful dynasty in the future, it was easy to imagine how terrifying his strength was. Chapter 410. Whether it was the true dragon fate or the ancient Golden Crow fate, they were all chosen by the gods. For many years, there had never been a chosen one with the fortune of the ancient Golden Crow in the 5 major tribes of the Katar Desert. Without the fortune of the ancient Golden Crow, the method of opening the ancestral mausoleum and inheriting the treasures was not feasible. Thus, there was only one way. That was to convince the upper echelons of the 5 tribes to give up the 5 keys to open the ancestral tomb. Otherwise, the huge treasures left behind by the Desert Dynasty, as well as the inheritance of the legendary emperor who founded the Desert Dynasty, would never appear in the world again. They would always be buried deep in the dark underground. Third Elder, forgive me for speaking bluntly, but your 5 tribes have inherited a trace of the orthodoxy of the Desert Dynasty. If you attack each other like this, you will only waste your strength in vain. You will not be able to obtain such a huge treasure. After taking in a deep breath, Faerun opened his mouth again. Ever since he obtained the broken stone steel, he had always wanted the treasures left behind by the Desert Dynasty, so he would not give up so easily. Moreover, Faerun firmly believed that even if the 5 tribes had their own conflicts, they would definitely compromise in the face of massive benefits. Boy, you're right. The Grand Elder, and I also think so. Changing the topic, Kublai laughed dryly and said, however, our Shuchuo tribe is ranked at the bottom. Even if we willingly give up one of our keys, the other 4 tribes won't accept it so easily. This is especially the case for the Paluo tribe and the Shadi tribe. These 2 tribes were the main forces that supported the Crown Prince and the Prime Minister when the Desert Empire was destroyed 10,000 years ago. The current Paluo tribe and the Shadi tribe have also inherited the old path from back then. It is not an ordinary difficulty to get them to put down their many years of grudges and fighting. Moreover, the Paluo tribe is becoming stronger day by day and seems to be able to unify the Katar Desert. If they unify the Katar Desert, the other 4 tribes will have to obediently give up their keys. Kublai's words were not without reason. Just as he had said, the Paluo tribe was the leader of the 5 tribes and had great power. They were also the only tribe that had a chance of unifying the Katar Desert. If the Paluo tribe was able to unify the world and control the 5 keys, the inheritance and treasures of the ancestral tomb would definitely fall into their hands. At that time, let alone Faerun, even the other 4 tribes would not be able to get anything. Third Elder, according to what you said, as long as we convince the Paluo tribe, the other tribes will not be a problem, Faerun said solemnly with a sharp gaze. If they could make the Paluo tribe give up their keys, then the other tribes that were weaker, even the Shadi tribe, would not have any objections. After all, as long as it was not monopolized by one tribe, when the ancestral mausoleum was officially opened, there would be a large number of treasures and opportunities. Each of the 5 tribes would benefit greatly. Boy, you plan to convince the Paluo tribe? Hearing this, Kublai was shocked. As the 3rd elder of the Shotoa tribe, he naturally knew how difficult this trip would be. The Paluo tribe had many experts and was many times stronger than the Shotoa tribe. Faerun was only a rank 3 martial master. Although he had the rank 6 Scorching Sun sect behind him, it would not be easy to convince the Paluo tribe to give up their keys. After all, the Paluo tribe was the leader of the 5 tribes and had the potential to unify the world. If they gave up their keys, they would have to split the ancestral tomb dynasty's treasures with the other 4 tribes. Compared to one tribe monopolizing the ancestral tomb dynasty's treasures, the difference was not small. Yes. Nodding his head, Fei Ren's expression was firm. Boy, although you're from a Scorching Sun sect, how confident are you that you can make the old men of the Paluo tribe give up? Just as he finished speaking, a deep voice came from the sky. In the next moment, a plain-robed elder descended from the sky and landed in front of the two with a serious expression. Zhang Han, so you're here as well. Seeing who it was, Kublai's old face froze for a moment before he exclaimed. The other party's name was Zhang Han, and he was one of the 5 elders of the Shotoa tribe. He was also the first elder with the highest status among the 5 elders, and his cultivation was at the half-step martial spirit realm. From the looks of it, Zhang Han seemed to have stayed in the courtyard for a long time. As for the conversation between Fei Ren and Kublai, it naturally fell into his ears. After all, the soundproof formation that Kublai set up was only a middle yellow rank. To a half-step martial spirit realm expert like Zhang Han, the formation was useless. I have this. I think they will give up. Facing Zhang Han's question, Fei Ren's expression did not change. He then took out a fiery red token from his spiritual ring. This was the token that Immortal Zishu, Feng Yun, had given to him. It contained a trace of Feng Yun's origin energy. As long as he crushed this token, Feng Yun would be able to sense it within 100,000 miles. This was Fei Ren's bargaining chip. Although the Paluo tribe was strong, it was still far from the Scorching Sun sect. Currently, the Scorching Sun sect had at least 3 martial spirit realm experts, and their disciples were all geniuses. On the other hand, the number of martial spirit realm experts in the Paluo tribe could be counted with one's fingers. It was rumored that only the current patriarch of the Paluo tribe had barely stepped into the martial spirit realm. As for the rest of the younger generation, they were even more incomparable. Therefore, with his relationship with Feng Yun, Fei Ren was confident that even if the Paluo tribe was unwilling to give up, they would not dare to act recklessly. This is the origin energy aura of the martial spirit realm. Sensing that the fiery red token in Fei Ren's hand was not ordinary, Great Elder Zhang Han's face slightly changed. As a half-step into martial spirit realm expert, he had been unable to break through for many years. Therefore, he was extremely sensitive to origin energy. Naturally, he knew that the origin energy aura within the fiery red token was the power of the martial spirit realm that he longed for. This junior is untalented. Although Immortal Zishu, Feng Yun, is not my true master, he can barely be considered as half a master. With a flip of his hand, Fei Ren took back the token and said, "So that's how it is. This old man has long heard of Brother Feng Yun's great name. So you're his disciple. If that's the case, then everything makes sense at this point." Great Elder Zhang Han also sighed with a rueful expression. After all, Fei Ren was from the Scorching Sun sect. His talent and strength were not ordinary. If he did not have the protection of the seniors in the sect, it would not be possible. Ha ha ha! Old man Zhang, with the help of Fei Ren, it seems that we have a chance to persuade the Paluo tribe to open the ancestral tomb. On the side, Kublai also interjected. His tone could not help but be a little excited. After all, once the ancestral tomb was opened, their Shotoa tribe would be able to get a share of the enormous treasures within. Chapter 411. Be that as it may, I still need the 2 of you to go with me to prevent those people from harming me. Seeing Kublai's reaction, Fei Ren scratched his face and coughed. It was too dangerous to go into the tiger's den alone. Even with Feng Yun's token, he wasn't sure if he could hold on until Feng Yun's reinforcements arrived. Therefore, he still needed a few powerful helpers to hold the fort. Zhang Han and Kublai were the best candidates. After all, Kublai and Zhang Han were both above level 9 Martial Master. Zhang Han was even a half-step to Martial Spirit Realm Expert and could be considered a decent force. No problem. With the 2 of us here, the Paluo tribe won't do anything to you. Moreover, you have the Scorching Sun sect and Brother Feng Yun behind you. Indra can't possibly go against the Scorching Sun sect. Hearing those words, First Elder Zhang Han burst into laughter. As for Indra, he was the current chief of the Paluo tribe, the only martial spirit realm expert in the Paluo tribe. Deep in the Katar Desert, in the Paluo tribe, in front of an asphalt palace, there were many figures and the atmosphere was tense. Zhang Han, what brings you here today? What? You want to visit your old friend? Looking at the calm Zhang Han, a black-haired, green-eyed, middle-aged man in a long robe with patterns at the corner of his eyes, spoke coldly. His tone was somewhat mocking. The middle-aged man in the long robe was about 8 feet tall. Between his brows, there was a majesty that only belonged to a superior. His entire body was extraordinary, and at the same time, there was a frightening fluctuation of yuan power. He was the current chief of the Paluo tribe, the only martial spirit realm expert, Indra. Indra, I'm not here to visit you. I'm here to advise you. Shaking his head, Zhang Han said plainly, ignoring Indra's mocking words. Advise me. Frowning, Indra's face was a little suspicious, as if he couldn't figure out the other party's intentions. That's right, Chief Indra. As long as you're willing to hand over the tomb opening key, when the 5 tomb opening keys are gathered, the ancestral tomb can be opened. Now that the 5 major tribes are divided, what's the use of guarding it if they can't get their hands on the treasure? In the next moment, Fei Rin stepped forward and spoke in a calm tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. On this trip to the Paluo tribe, other than himself, there was also Zhang Han and Kublai accompanying him. Even if a battle were to break out, Fei Rin wouldn't be trapped alone and would still have a chance to escape. How dare you? How dare you be disrespectful to Lord Patriarch? Brat, this is not the place for a junior like you to speak. Before Fei Rin could finish his words, a few guards scuttled out from both sides of the hall and berated him in a stern voice. Their faces were furious. After all, in the Polo tribe, no one dared to speak to Indra in such a tone. Moreover, compared to Zhang Han and the others, the unfamiliar and young Fei Rin could only be considered as an insignificant junior. Hee, brat, who are you? What qualifications do you have to negotiate with me? Looking at the unfamiliar Fei Rin in front of him, Indra squinted his eyes and sneered again. It was obvious that he didn't care. Although the other party was an outsider martial artist, his cultivation was only at the level 3 martial master realm. He was very weak and could be easily killed. Even if Zhang Han and Kublai attacked, they wouldn't be able to stop him. Therefore, Indra also wanted to know where Fei Rin got the courage and confidence to negotiate with him. With my identity as a disciple of the Scorching Sun sect and this thing, a white light flashed from the spirit ring on his finger. In the next moment, Fei Rin took out a fiery red token. Although the token looked ordinary, it contained a strong wave of origin energy of the martial spirit realm. Everyone present, including Indra in the middle of the hall, was stunned and looked solemn. Scorching Sun sect, the aura of the martial spirit realm. After a breath, Indra's face returned to normal. However, he still refused to relent. He said coldly, Brat, even if you're a disciple of the Scorching Sun sect and have the support of the sect elders, the treasure of the Desert Dynasty is a matter of our tribe. It's not up to an outsider martial artist like you to interfere. If there's nothing else, you should go back early. Your Scorching Sun sect and I will stay out of each other's business as the head of the Paluo tribe. The head of the Paluo tribe, an expert of the martial spirit realm who had reached LV1 of the martial spirit realm, Indra naturally had his own pride. Even if he was intimidated by the Scorching Sun sect, he wouldn't be moved by Fei Rin and Zhang Han's words and willingly give up the key to open the tomb. In front of the asphalt hall, facing the deadlock, Fei Rin was about to say something when a silent Kublai suddenly stepped forward. Indra, you should know very well that the purple-robed woman is unscrupulous in order to get information about the treasure. If she finds out about the key to the mausoleum, you and I won't be able to get anything out of it. With that woman's terrifying strength, even if the 5 major tribes work together, we won't be able to defeat her. The key to open the tomb will fall into her hands in the end. Speaking of this, Kublai's tone was filled with disappointment. What? You two old men also told that woman about the treasure. Hearing this, Yin Shuayuo also suddenly stood up. His indifferent face became extremely uneasy as he questioned in a stern voice. The other party's words hit his sore spot. Just as Kublai had said, a few days ago, a powerful purple-robed woman had visited the Paluo tribe. Moreover, she had swept through the entire Paluo tribe by herself. Even he, the chief, was no match for her. He had suffered a crushing defeat and had almost lost his life. Although Indra was forced to reveal the clues about the treasure to the purple-robed woman in the end, he still did not tell her about the mausoleum key. Now that Kublai had hit the nail on the head, he naturally couldn't stay calm. Damn it, you two old men are the upper echelons of the Shantua tribe. How can you be so spineless as to give the information about the treasure to an outsider? As he shouted, a wisp of anger appeared on Indra's cold face. His eyes were as sharp as a knife. You're wrong, Indra. I didn't tell that woman about the key to open the tomb, but my intuition tells me that we can't hide this for long. If that woman knows that we lied to her, the 5 major tribes will be destroyed. Shaking his head, Zhang Han spoke again. His tone was just as serious. Although he didn't get along well with Indra, and their relationship was even strained, they were all from the 5 major tribes after all. He didn't want to see the 5 major tribes being annihilated. Chapter 412. As soon as he said that, the entire asphalt hall fell into a dead silence. Whether it was Paluo tribe's patriarch Indra or the guards and elders in the hall, they were all bewildered. No one knew what they were thinking. Patriarch Shi, a white-haired old man with a bone ornament on his head, suddenly stepped forward. The next moment, he cupped his hands toward Indra in the center of the hall, as if he wanted to say something. No need to talk nonsense. I have my own decision. Staring at the white-haired old man, Indra's expression flickered as he said coldly, Indra, for the treasure, our 5 tribes have been fighting for tens of thousands of years. It's time to end it. As for the inheritance and treasure left behind by His Majesty, the 5 tribes can compete fairly for it. The strongest will get it. If we continue to fight like this, the treasure in the ancestral mausoleum will fall into the hands of outsiders. At this moment, seeing that Indra's face was faintly shaken, Zhang Han spoke again with a solemn tone. Good, very good. I can accept the proposal of your Shotowa tribe, but whether the other 3 tribes agree or not has nothing to do with me. Zhang Han's words were the last straw that broke the camel's back. At this moment, Indra seemed to have made up his mind. He immediately gritted his teeth and snorted coldly. Zhang Han's words were not without reason. Their 5 tribes were still too weak compared to the experts of the outside world. Just the rank 6 Scorching Sun sect alone could crush the experts of the 5 tribes. If the purple-robed woman really knew the truth, not only would they lose the key in their hands, but they would also have to give up the treasure in the ancestral mausoleum. In the end, even the 5 tribes would face the risk of being destroyed. If that was the case, it would be better for the 5 tribes to work together to open the ancestral mausoleum and let the strongest obtain the opportunity. Night Devil Fairy. This woman is really scary. Seeing that Indra had suddenly compromised, Fei-Rin clenched his fists in his heart. Naturally, he knew who the other party was afraid of. The purple-robed woman who could make the 5 great tribes tremble was the Night Demon Fairy, who had slaughtered half of the Iron Palm Gate back then. This mysterious woman had already become his inner demon. At first, Fei-Rin thought that the Night Devil Fairy's strength was at most martial spirit realm. However, it seemed that he had greatly underestimated the other party's strength. The Night Demon Fairy had wiped out the 5 major tribes in the Katar Desert all by herself. Her strength was already beyond the martial spirit realm. She might have stepped into the legendary Martial King realm and become a Martial King. Patriarch, are we just going to hand over the keys in our hands? In at most 3 years, with the strength of our Paluo tribe, we will be able to unify the Katar Desert. At that time, we will be able to monopolize the treasures of the ancestral tomb. Why should we share this opportunity with the people of the four major tribes? When the white-haired old man saw that Indra had accepted Zhang Han, Fei Run, and the other's suggestion, he transmitted his voice to Indra again. His tone was a little indignant. In his opinion, the Paluo tribe didn't need to take the initiative to compromise and harm their own interests. You know nothing. However, to the white-haired old man's surprise, Indra's angry rebuke rang in his ears the next moment. If not for that woman, do you think that I would have agreed to Zhang Han's suggestion? You should be very clear about that woman's strength. With her strength, destroying our Paluo tribe would be a piece of cake. At that time, do you think that we can still protect the treasures of the ancestral tomb? With a cold expression, Indra scoffed. Faced with Indra's question, the white-haired old man was suddenly at a loss for words. Then, he looked embarrassed and didn't dare to say another word. It seemed that he had no other choice. Patriarch Indra is indeed a hero who understands the situation. As for the other three tribes, there is no need for Patriarch Indra to worry about them. At that time, the two seniors and I will visit the other three tribes one by one and try to gather the 5 keys to open the ancestral tomb. In front of the asphalt hall, Feirin cupped his hands toward Indra and grinned. Although Indra didn't agree at first, under the pressure of the Night Demon Fairy, he finally chose to compromise and was willing to work together to open the ancestral tomb. I hope so. Without saying much, Indra said lightly, Seniors, it's all thanks to you this time. Otherwise, the Paluo tribe leader might not have compromised. Feirin gently exhaled before transmitting his voice to Zhang Han and Kublai Khan, who were beside him. Kid, Kublai and I aren't helping you. You outside martial artists want the treasures of the ancestral tomb. So do we. Glancing at Feirin beside him, Zhang Han said with a faint tone. He came from the rank 6 Scorching Sun sect and was a martial arts genius that was hard to come by in 100 years. Although he had some appreciation for Feirin, it was far from the point of helping him wholeheartedly. Zhang Han's actions were also for the benefit of the Shoda tribe. Yes, Feirin kid, don't think that I'm helping you. Let me tell you the truth. Back then, His Majesty had stepped into the martial king realm and was titled as a king. If I could obtain the treasures in the ancestral mausoleum, even if it was just a trace of luck, I might have a chance to break through to the martial spirit realm. Chuckling, Kublai also transmitted his voice back as if he didn't care about Fei Ren's compliment. Cough, cough. The two seniors are truly outspoken people. Seeing that the other party directly pointed it out, Fei Ren didn't say anything else and also laughed dryly. Just like what Zhang Han and Kublai said, the legendary emperor who created the Desert Dynasty was a martial king. After he died, he left behind a large amount of opportunities and treasures. These opportunities and treasures were now buried deep underground with the palace ruins and buried in the ancestral tomb. As long as they could open the ancestral tomb, they would have a chance to obtain the inheritance and treasures of the legendary emperor who was a martial king. Zhang Han, you and this kid from the Scorching Sun sect shouldn't be too happy. I'm sure you haven't forgotten the method and timing to open the ancestral tomb, right? At this moment, Indra, who was in the center of the hall, smirked and said coldly, although he was unwilling, as the other party said, the ancestral tomb had been silent for tens of thousands of years, and it was time to see the light of day again. It was useless to guard a mountain of treasures that couldn't be obtained with one's own hands. Of course, that woman's strength is too terrifying. I'm sure the higher-ups of the other 3 tribes will understand the pros and cons and take the initiative to hand over the keys in their hands. As long as the 5 keys are gathered, the day when the weather changes and the 7 stars converge will be the day when the 5 tribes work together to open the ancestral tomb. Facing Indra's question, Zhang Han restrained his expression and said solemnly, as if he understood what Indra was referring to. Chapter 413. The day when the 7 stars gather. On the side, Fei Ren's face was filled with doubt. From the words of Indra and Zhang Han, it seemed that opening the ancestral tomb was not that simple. Apart from gathering the 5 keys, there were other conditions. Although he was curious, Zhang Han, Kublai, and the others did not seem to want to discuss this in the hall, and they all left. Patriarch, according to the records, the next ecliptic auspicious day of the 7 stars should be in 10 days. After Zhang Han and the others left the hall, the white-haired elder also stepped forward. I know. The opening of the ancestral tomb will definitely attract countless experts. The treasures don't matter, but the legacy left behind by the emperor cannot be obtained by outsiders. Indra said sternly with a thoughtful expression. At the same time, his body exuded a murderous aura. For this day, he had prepared for many years. As long as he could obtain the inheritance of the almighty martial king, he would have the opportunity to advance his cultivation and lead the Paluo tribe to unify the Katar Desert, becoming the new ruler of this land. After leaving the hall, Feiren followed Zhang Han and Kublai and headed outside. They had already convinced the Polo tribe's chief, Indra, and there was no reason for them to stay in the Polo tribe any longer. Kid, are you feeling very puzzled? Kublai suddenly asked as he looked at Feiren. I'm a bit confused. Feiren nodded and did not deny it. Haha, that's not strange. These are secrets that our 5 tribes have kept for many years. Of course, an outsider like you wouldn't know. Kublai laughed as he stroked his beard. Third brother, it's time to tell this boy. On the side, Zhang Han looked back and said with a meaningful tone. Before, they did not want to discuss opening the ancestral tomb because of the instructions left behind by their ancestors, which was not to discuss this matter in front of outsiders. Now that they had left the Polo tribe and there was no one else around, the two of them did not treat Feiren as an outsider. After all, he played a big part in convincing the Polo tribe's chief, Indra, to open the ancestral tomb. There's a Big Dipper in the sky, and the Big Dipper calls for the 7 stars. Normally, it would be very difficult for these 7 stars to gather together. Instead, they would be in separate states, hanging high in the sky. Kublai said slowly. The palace ruins and treasures were buried deep underground along with the ancestral tomb. No one knows their exact location. According to the teachings left behind by the ancestors of the 5 great tribes, only when the 7 Big Dipper stars in the sky gather together will there be a change in the sky and reveal the exact location of the ancestral tomb. As soon as he finished speaking, Feiren came to a sudden realization. The emperor of the Desert Dynasty back then was truly a meticulous person. These secrets were only known to the people of the 5 major tribes. If they didn't know the inside story, even if they collected the 5 keys, it would be useless if they couldn't find the specific location of the ancestral tomb. After all, the day when the 7 stars converged was a heavenly phenomenon, and it was very rare. If they missed it, they could only continue to wait. First Elder, Third Elder, the next gathering of the 7 stars shouldn't be too far away, right? Feiren suddenly thought of something as he clasped his hands and asked. Since Zhang Han and Kublai were willing to go with him to the Paluo tribe, it meant that the time to open the ancestral tomb was not too far away. That's right, in 10 days. Zhang Han nodded solemnly as he spoke with a solemn tone. As the grand elder of the Shichuo tribe, the burden on his shoulders was no less than Indra's. Indra wanted to lead the Paluo tribe to unify the Katar Desert, but he also wanted to lead the Shichuo tribe to prosperity. If they could obtain the massive treasures in the ancestral tomb, or even the legacy left behind by the emperor, all of this would be possible. Old Zhang, there's still the Sha Emperor, Tai Shi, and Dali tribes. We still need to convince those old fellows. Speaking to their, Kublai reminded them as he looked at Zhang Han. Even though they had convinced the Paluo tribe's chief, Indra, they only had 2 keys, and they still needed to gather the remaining 3. Since Indra has agreed, the other 3 tribes won't be a problem. Also, with that woman's threat, those old fellows are probably even more afraid of death than you and me. Changing the topic, Zhang Han waved his hand, indicating that it was not a big problem. Looks like that woman has already gone around the 5 tribes. Hearing that, Feiren clenched his fists. He naturally knew who the woman was. Apart from the night demon fairy, who had a grudge with him, No one else could make the experts of the 5 tribes tremble in fear. Katar Desert, Sha Emperor Tribe. Zhang Han, there's no need to say anything. I already know everything. I'm willing to give up the key in the Sha Emperor Tribe. The tribe leader of the Sha Di tribe, a tall and muscular man, parted his mouth when he saw Zhang Han, who was dressed in plain robes. After which, he laughed dryly and spoke in a straightforward manner. It was not because he was easier to talk to than Indra. Instead, once the ancestral tomb was opened, it would also be beneficial to the Sha Emperor tribe. Moreover, it would not attract the attention of other experts. It's the fortune of the 5 tribes that brother has such awareness. Seeing how straightforward the other party was, Zhang Han nodded, turned around, and left. In less than 3 days, Zhang Han and the others had convinced the upper echelons of the 5 tribes to offer up the key. At the same time, on the day when the 7 stars converged, the ancestral tomb that had been silent for 10,000 years would be opened. At the same time, in a remote courtyard in the Shichuo tribe, destroy. There was a loud shout, and in the next moment, the shadows of fists overlapped. Like golden light, they instantly covered half of the courtyard. At the same time, a shocking aura spread outward. Boom! The golden fist force slammed heavily into a wall made of rock. In the next instant, the wall crumbled into countless spiderwebs. It was reduced to a pile of dust on the spot. The Dharma Fist's power has increased again. It's not far from the perfect stage. Looks like fighting is the best way to increase my strength. Fei Run retracted his fist and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He had a gratified expression. Ever since he returned from the Paluo tribe, he had been cultivating in seclusion in this small courtyard. His goal was to consolidate and increase his strength so that he could face the ancestral tomb that would be opened in a few days. Once the ancestral tomb was opened, it would definitely cause a commotion. Moreover, with the natural phenomenon and the 7 stars converging, other than the people of the 5 tribes, it would definitely attract countless experts from the outside world. For this, Fei Ren had to make preparations. He could not predict what kind of opponent he would encounter. I hope I won't encounter that woman so soon. I might not be her match now. A familiar yet unfamiliar purple figure suddenly appeared in his mind. Fei Ren could not help but clench his fists. His expression was grave. Chapter 414. The Dantian's origin energy has increased again. It's close to 1/3. The results of his closed-door training are not bad. Sensing the abundant origin energy in his Dantian, Fei Ren's face showed a trace of satisfaction. During this closed-door training, other than martial arts, he also tried to improve his level 9 Dharma 1000 conversion technique to the next level and break through to the complete level. However, in the end, there was no result. As a level 9 Dharma 1000 conversion technique, the breakthrough was much more difficult than Fei Run had imagined. It cannot be easily broken through. It required a trace of opportunity. If I can obtain a trace of opportunity in the ancestral tomb, perhaps the Dharma 1000 conversion technique will have a chance to break through to the complete level. Sighing in his heart, Fei Ren's eyes sharpened. Although the Dharma golden body that he had mastered was extremely powerful and could support him in battles, it was not a complete acquired tyrant body. If he wanted to condense the real acquired Dharma golden Buddha body, he would have to break through to the complete level of the Dharma 1000 conversion technique. When he had obtained this level 9 Dharma 1000 conversion technique in the Pill Tower's forbidden area of the Alchemist Guild, the cultivation method of the Dharma 1000 conversion technique and meridian circulation had all entered the depths of his mind. For Fei Run, he already knew the strength of the Dharma golden Buddha body. If he could condense the Dharma golden Buddha body, his strength would increase by at least 5 times. Moreover, the Dharma golden Buddha body was not an ordinary acquired tyrant body. In its complete form, the user would be like an incarnation of heaven and earth. One punch could shatter mountains and rivers, and one step could destroy 9 stars. Its power was not weaker than a portion of the innate tyrant body. continue to improve my origin energy cultivation. Fei Ren collected his thoughts, and in the next moment he saw Fei Ren take out 2 round blood-red crystal ores from his spirit ring. Blood essence stones back then. He had obtained a mother blood essence stone from the dead black-robed old man. These 2 blood essence stones were derived from the mother blood essence stone. After a few days of precipitation, the mother blood essence stone that had been lying quietly in the spirit ring had given birth to about 7 or 8 blood essence stones. Although the number was not much, it was still extremely rare. Absorbing the rich blood chi and pure energy within the blood essence stones could not only improve one's physique, but also slightly increase origin energy and cultivation. Therefore, Fei Ren naturally would not let them go. Crack! Gently crushing the blood essence stone in his hand, Fei Ren began circulating his cultivation technique to slowly absorb the blood energy and energy contained within. Not long after, the 2 blood essence stones in Fei Ren's hands cracked apart, turning into useless fragments that lost their luster. Gently exhaling, Fei Ren's complexion actually became a little rosy, and the Yuanli aura on his body also increased slightly. Obviously, absorbing the blood energy and energy of the blood essence stone had some effect. Taking out the remaining blood essence stones from the spirit ring, Fei Ren did not hesitate and continued to absorb the blood chi and energy. Right now, increasing his cultivation level was his #1 priority. As for the other things, they were just worldly possessions. There was nothing to be regretful about. Moreover, he had a mother blood essence stone in his hands. In the future, there would be an endless supply of blood essence stones. A quarter of the strange inscriptions have been restored. Looks like this immortal supreme treasure will become stronger as my cultivation base increases. When all the strange inscriptions on the body of the cauldron are restored, perhaps the divine immortal cauldron can really devour all living things and even refine the heavenly Tao law. After absorbing the blood essence stone in his hand, Fei Ren took out the divine immortal cauldron in his dantian. His eyes were deep in thought, and his expression was solemn. Ever since he had a breakthrough in his cultivation base, the divine immortal cauldron had changed. The dim inscriptions on the body of the cauldron had also recovered some of their luster. At the same time, the divine immortal cauldron had also unlocked a stronger devouring and refining power. In the past, Fei Ren could only use the divine immortal cauldron to devour the remaining life essence of corpses, demon cores, and medicinal herbs. Now, he was no longer the same as before. He could even refine spiritual treasures, weapons, and even some formation spirit talismans to increase his cultivation base. The divine immortal cauldron's devouring and refining power was many times stronger than when Fei Ren had just obtained it. It's time to come out of seclusion. Looking up at the sky, Fei Ren looked into the distance. He saw that the sky was gradually turning dark, as if it was close to sunset. Today was the day when the Big Dipper gathered, and it was also the day when the ancestral tomb was opened. When night fell, the Big Dipper in the sky would converge in a straight line and guide the people of the 5 major tribes, telling them the true location of the ancestral tomb. Fei Ren, kid, it's about time to go. Suddenly, a loud shout sounded out from outside, and in the next moment, Kublai Khan stepped through the air, looking extremely hurried. Senior 3rd Elder. Looking at the ruddy Kublai, Fei Ren cupped his hands. The opening of the ancestral tomb this time was very important, and it affected the core interests of the 5 major tribes. Hence, the Shichuo tribe also sent out all of their experts. Apart from the 3rd Elder, Kublai, and the 1st Elder, Zhang Han, the other 3 elders also led their teams to the ancestral tomb. Let's go. Old Zhang and the other elders have already led their teams. If you don't come with me, you won't even be able to get anything. Glancing at Fei Ren, Kublai nodded. He was a genius disciple from the Scorching Sun sect, and the Shichuo tribe had gained a powerful helper. At this moment, as the night deepened, the phenomenon in the sky became more and more obvious. The Big Dipper had converged and pointed to the north of the Qatar Desert, giving off a dazzling light as if it was guiding lost travelers. At the same time, the experts of the 5 major tribes were also on the move. All of them were heading towards the place indicated by the 7 stars in a mighty manner. Even some of the independent cultivators who were coming and going from the Qatar Desert were startled and looked up at the sky. In the Qatar Desert, phenomenon in the sky, the Big Dipper has converged. It's finally here. Damn it, I've been so unlucky for 8 lifetimes. After being the guardian of the ancestral tomb for so many years, I can finally be free. Somewhere at the foot of a cliff, an inconspicuous black tombstone stood quietly. Beside it sat a black-haired, middle-aged man with a full beard. At this moment, he was holding a wine jug in his hand and cursing. At the same time, a trace of drunkenness appeared on his face. Out of wine? Soon, the jug was empty, and in the next moment, the black-haired, middle-aged man's expression froze as he looked displeased. Whatever, I'll drink later. Those idiots from the 5 major tribes should be here soon. Once the ancestral tomb is opened, I'll have fulfilled my promise to Old Huang and can leave this damned place. The black-haired, middle-aged man threw the jug of wine to the side and stretched as a rare look of excitement appeared in his eyes. Chapter 4:15. At the same time, on the other side, under the guidance of the Big Dipper, the experts all rushed towards the ancestral tomb. Most of them were from the 5 major tribes. Whoosh, whoosh. In the sky, 2 streams of essence, energy flowing light flashed past at lightning speed. Third Elder, how far are we from the ancestral tomb? Looking at Kublai, Fei Rin asked with a solemn expression. He could feel a large amount of Yuan Qi moving towards the north. Other than the people from the 5 major tribes, there were also some warriors from the outside world. Most of them came aggressively for the ancestral tomb's treasures. With our current speed, we will reach the ancestral tomb in at most an hour. Facing Fei Rin's question, Kublai said calmly with a solemn expression. Opening the ancestral tomb was a great opportunity for the Shotoa tribe. It was also a chance for them to rise up. Even if they did not obtain the inheritance of the martial king realm expert, just obtaining a portion of the ancestral tomb's treasures would be enough to increase their strength greatly. From there, they would be able to break away from the bottom of the 5 major tribes. Furthermore, Kublai's Yuan Qi cultivation had stagnated at the 9th level of the martial master realm for a long time. If he could obtain an opportunity, he would have the chance to break through and become even stronger. After a while, Fei Rin and Kublai arrived at a cliff. At this moment, there were dozens of figures standing above the cliff. These figures had powerful auras, and most of them were experts from the 5 major tribes. Furthermore, their Yuan Qi cultivation was above the 6th level of the martial master realm. None of them were weak. It was as if they were waiting for the right time to open the tomb. These experts did not act rashly and were instead quietly waiting. These guys came earlier than us. Looking at the large number of experts gathered at the cliff, Kublai said. Among the crowd, he recognized a few familiar faces. Among them was the Paluo tribe's chief, Indra, and the higher-ups of the other 3 tribes. It was obvious that the experts of the 5 major tribes did not slack off for the ancestral tomb's treasures and had all come out. Third Elder, Fei Rin, you're finally here. Not too far away. Zhang Han flew over with a grin on his face. Senior Grand Elder. Looking at Zhang Han, Fei Rin clasped his fist and bowed. In addition to the other party, there were also 5 or 6 martial Dao experts with extraordinary auras following behind him. These people seemed to be the elites of the Shotoa tribe, and the lowest cultivation among them was at the 6th level of the martial master realm. At this time, in addition to the masters of the 5 major tribes, some rogue cultivators in the Qatar Desert seemed to have been alarmed and rushed here one after another. For a time, more and more masters gathered in front of the cliff. In the sky and on the ground, there was a dense black mass. Below the cliff, in front of a black tombstone, looks like everyone's here, looking at the densely packed figures in the sky. The black-haired, middle-aged man who was guarding the place also grinned. In the next moment, he leaped into the sky. Shwa! The black-haired, middle-aged man's figure pierced through the air. Everyone only felt their vision blur as the black-haired, middle-aged man arrived at the cloud layer. At this moment, he was emitting a yuan power fluctuation that caused one's heart to palpitate. It seemed that his strength was extraordinary. "Are you this year's Tombkeeper?" Looking at the black-haired, middle-aged man's drunken face, Indra narrowed his eyes and probed. According to the ancestral records passed down in their tribe, when the Desert Dynasty was destroyed, there was a Tombkeeper left behind. These Tombkeepers were bound by some kind of life and death contract. Although they were born with extraordinary talent and strength, they were responsible for guarding the ancestral mausoleum and protecting the treasures of the ancestral mausoleum. Moreover, they were never allowed to leave the Qatar Desert. As for the method to break this life and death contract, even Indra himself did not know. He had only heard rumors. "That's right, it's me." In response to Indra's question, the black-haired, middle-aged man reached out and brushed the dust off his clothes. He seemed a little unruly. "That person is—" At this time, Farron also noticed the black-haired, middle-aged man's figure and was surprised. Not only was the other party powerful, but he also seemed to know a lot about the 5 major tribes. "Tombkeeper." Zhang Han exhaled heavily and said, "Tombkeeper?" It was Fei Rin's first time hearing about the Tombkeepers in the ancestral mausoleum. Zhang Han and Kublai did not mention it to him before. "Actually, it's also my first time seeing the Tombkeepers. There were only rumors about them before." As if sensing Fei Rin's thoughts, Zhang Han stroked his beard and laughed dryly. Although he did not know how the Tombkeepers came to be, everyone's mind was focused on opening the ancestral mausoleum and obtaining the treasures inside. Therefore, they did not care much about the rumors. "There really is a Tombkeeper family. Looks like you're Huang Shikong." In the sky, a white-haired old man in a green robe with a bone sword at his waist spoke. The white-haired old man's name was Her, and he was the chief of the Barchi tribe. Unlike the others present, he had some contact with the descendants of the Gravekeeper. Although the contact was not deep, and it had been a long time, he knew a lot about the Gravekeeper. "Huang Shikong? That old man has been dead for many years. I'm afraid you won't be able to find him." In response to Hull's probing, the black-haired, middle-aged man shook his head and smiled faintly. "Dead?" Hearing this, Hull was a little surprised. In his memories when he was young, the Tombkeepers were from a family with the surname Huang. The Tombkeeper of that generation was a powerful cultivator called Huang Shikong. "I'm Huang Tian, the son of that old man." "Sigh, I'm really unlucky. I'm actually the descendant of some Bulsh *T Tombkeeper." "Fate." The black-robed middle-aged man called Huang Tian crossed his arms and shrugged with a helpless look on his face. "Huang Tian, since you're this generation's Tombkeeper, I'm sure you know how to open the ancestral mausoleum." On the side, Indra spoke again, and his tone was a little hurried. Compared to the Tombkeeper family, he was more interested in the treasures in the ancestral mausoleum and the inheritance left behind by the legendary emperor of the Desert Dynasty. "It's simple. Do you see that black tombstone? There are 5 different notches on that black tombstone. Just put the 5 keys in your hands into the corresponding notches, and you can successfully open the entrance to the ancestral mausoleum." Huang Tian snorted coldly as he glanced at the impatient Indra. Then he pointed at the black tombstone on the cliff below. He was not interested in the treasures of the ancestral mausoleum at all. As the descendant of the Tombkeeper, Huang Tian only had one thought in his mind, and that was to break the life and death contract on him. At the same time, he would leave the Tombkeeper's identity and go to the wider world to explore and be free. Chapter 416. In the Sky. "Why should we believe you?" One of the Kshadi tribe's experts shouted coldly, as if he still had some doubts. He looked at Huang Tian with eyes full of shock and uncertainty. Although the other party had said that he was a descendant of the Tombkeeper family and was in charge of guarding the ancestral tomb treasures, no one knew much about the Tombkeeper family other than the tribe leader of the Barkingshi tribe. Do I need to explain myself to trash like you? Huang Tian said disdainfully as he glanced at the expert from the Shadi tribe. Forget it if you don't believe me. The other party's Yuan power cultivation was only at level 6 martial master and was no match for him. Trash! How dare you? Die! Faced with Huang Tian's mockery, the level 6 martial master expert from the Shadi tribe flew into a rage. His murderous intent rose as he raised his hand and threw a punch. You overestimate yourself. Faced with the incoming Yuan power attack, Huang Tian smiled coldly, as if he had no intention of dodging. At the same time, he slowly extended his left hand. Crack! Suddenly, the sound of glass shattering could be heard. In the next moment, the void exploded as a spatial crack that was several people tall appeared out of thin air. At the same time, it emitted a boundless devouring power and instantly devoured the Yuan power attack from the Shadi tribe expert. This is the power of space concept. Seeing this scene, everyone present, including Fei Run, was stunned and their faces were filled with shock. After all, other than the legendary Martial King realm experts, only martial way geniuses who had comprehended the power of space could tear the void apart with one hand. It was obvious that Huang Tian was not only powerful, he had also grasped a trace of the power of space concept. Unlike ordinary concepts, the power of space concept was a rare and special concept. Not only was it more mysterious and obscure, but it was also more powerful. Those who could comprehend it were all 1 in a million martial way geniuses. Scram! While everyone was stunned, Huang Tian's cold and indifferent voice was slowly emitted in the next moment. Bang! Boom! A streak of bloody light streaked across the empty space. Before anyone could see Huang Tian's attack, the expert from the Kshadi Emperor tribe fell to the ground. His body was covered in terrible injuries, and he was barely hanging on by a breath. He was not far from death. Is there anyone else who doesn't agree? After killing this expert from the Shadi tribe with a single move, Huang Tian patted off the dust on his body. His eyes looked towards everyone present as he spoke in a faint voice. Although he was bound by the life and death contract and could not leave the Katar Desert, he had to guard the ancestral mausoleum for the rest of his life. However, it was a blessing in disguise. Huang Tian's talent and perception were not something that ordinary warriors could match. Under the stimulation of the life and death contract, not only did he comprehend the rare concept of space, but his origin energy cultivation had also broken through to LV1 martial spirit realm. To put it bluntly, Huang Tian, who had grasped a trace of space concept, possessed strength sufficient to beat up all the experts of the 5 great tribes present. First level martial spirit realm. Looking at Huang Tian's terrifying strength, Indra's face turned cold. He sensed a powerful aura that was not weaker than his own from the other party's body. He had also reached the martial spirit realm. What a powerful force! Not only Indra, but Fei Run on the other side of the sky also had a solemn expression. If it was a one-on-one duel, with his current strength, he was still no match for Huang Tian. He would definitely lose within 5 moves. Everyone, there's no time to lose. Let's open the mausoleum. Seeing that everyone present had fallen into silence, the chief of the Barkshire tribe stepped forward to break the silence. Now that Huang Tian's strength was there, and he was indeed this year's tomb keeper, it was meaningless to continue wasting time here. It was better to enter the ancestral mausoleum as soon as possible. All right, then let's listen to Chief Her. Let's open the mausoleum. As soon as he finished speaking, the higher-ups of the 5 great tribes looked at each other and then leaped out, flashing the keys in their hands at the same time. Swoosh! 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 The wind whistled as 5 different keys shot out and landed steadily on the black tombstone at the bottom of the cliff. Buzz, buzz! As the 5 keys were inserted into the tombstone, the originally simple black tombstone also reacted. It emitted a dazzling light and trembled at the same time, as if a behemoth that had been buried for a long time was about to awaken from the ground. For a moment, the wind and clouds changed color and the earth trembled. Boom! Suddenly, another loud rumbling sound was heard. In the next moment, the ground under the black tombstone cracked open, revealing a bottomless hole. This is the entrance to the ancestral mausoleum. Looking at the giant hole that suddenly appeared, her raised his eyebrows and exclaimed. Obviously, this bottomless hole was the rumored entrance to the ancestral mausoleum. That's right. It's really the entrance to the ancestral mausoleum. On the other side, seeing the entrance to the ancestral mausoleum, Zhang Han was also excited. Let's go. Just as everyone was about to move, the chief of the Paluo tribe, Indra Luo, took the lead and led a group of experts into the ancestral mausoleum. After Indra Luo took action, the experts of the other tribes also followed and entered the ancestral mausoleum. Senior First Elder, Senior Third Elder, it's about time for us to move. Looking at Zhang Han and Kublai, Fei Ren said in a serious tone. Now that the entrance to the ancestral mausoleum was open, if they were late, they might not even get the soup, let alone the treasures. Okay, let's go. Faced with Fei Ren's reminder, Zhang Han and the others nodded their heads and set off. At this moment, as the entrance to the ancestral mausoleum opened, countless experts from the outside world gathered. There were even some half-step to martial spirit realm experts. That Dog Emperor Azir's things aren't that easy to take. Once that Dog Emperor's inheritance is obtained, I'll be able to break free from the shackles of the life and death contract. Looking at the experts pouring into the ancestral mausoleum, Huang Tian sneered, as if he had no intention of stopping them. Now that the ancestral mausoleum was open, the life and death contract in his body was only half broken. If he wanted to completely break the life and death contract, he needed another condition. The legendary emperor who founded the Desert Dynasty was called Azir. He was a martial king realm expert. Before he died, he had planted a life and death contract with the Gravekeeper family. Unless his inheritance was inherited by a fated person, the Gravekeeper family would never be able to leave the ancestral mausoleum until that fated person appeared. As such, even though Huang Tian hated Azir, this was a great opportunity for him to break free from the shackles of the life and death contract. I wonder which of the 5 tribes will be able to obtain that Dog Emperor's inheritance. I want to leave, but I can't wait. Looking at the entrance to the ancestral mausoleum, Huang Tian turned and left, disappearing into the horizon. Within the ancestral mausoleum, there was a barren grassland. Whoosh, whoosh. 2 rays of light suddenly flashed in the sky, and in the next moment, Fei Ren's body fell to the ground. Apart from this, there was an old figure with a dense aura beside him. I never thought that there would be a small underground world within the ancestral mausoleum. How mysterious. Is this the power of a martial king realm expert? Looking around, Fei Ren was surprised by the unfamiliar environment in front of him. Chapter 417. Fei Ren boy, it seems that the 2 of us have been separated from the others. A faint, old voice came from the side. It sounded like he was deep in thought. Senior is right. The experts who entered the ancestral mausoleum seemed to have been isolated by some kind of spatial formation. Fei Ren raised his head to look at the elderly figure beside him and nodded his head. The other party's name was Timu and he was also one of the 5 great elders of the Shotoa tribe. He was not weak, reaching the 7th level of the martial master realm, and was also the 4th elder. I didn't expect the interior of the ancestral mausoleum to be a small underground world of its own. It seems that this is really the burial place of Emperor Azir. After letting out a deep breath, Timur spoke again. His gaze also swept across the barren grassland, his eyes filled with surprise. Emperor Azir? Hearing this, Fei Ren was stunned. Yes, Emperor Azir was the martial king realm expert who founded the Desert Dynasty. If His Majesty hadn't failed to break through the shackles and died, perhaps the Desert Dynasty wouldn't have fallen into the internal strife between the Crown Prince and the Prime Minister, causing it to be divided and destroyed. Sensing the doubt on the other party's face, Timur stroked his beard and smiled helplessly. It seemed that he also sighed and lamented about the destruction of the Desert Dynasty 10,000 years ago. Senior Fourth Elder, now is not the time to reminisce about the past. Let's go and meet up with Senior Zhang and the others. Feiren didn't say much as he calmly said. Now that the entrance to the ancestral mausoleum had been opened, other than the experts of the 5 great tribes, some martial artists from the outside world would definitely hear the news and come. At that time, the competition for treasures and opportunities would definitely be even more intense. Therefore, they had to race against time, or they might not even be able to drink the soup. In addition, Fei Rin's current cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the martial master realm. With his current strength, he was still unable to fight against the experts of the other 4 great tribes. He also needed to borrow the strength of Zhang Han and the others, as well as the Shotoa tribe. Okay, after Fei Rin's reminder, Timur also came back to his senses and nodded with a solemn expression. Right now, there was only him and Fei Rin. They were weak and indeed needed to catch up to the main group. If he encountered some loose cultivators or warriors from small tribes, it would be easy to deal with them. However, if he encountered experts from the other 4 tribes, it would be very troublesome and even dangerous. Swoosh! Swish! Leaping into the sky, Fei Rin and Timur followed the direction where the elemental energy aura was the most concentrated, leaving the desolate grassland at the same time. Ancestral Mausoleum, on the other side. A lone peak stood quietly. Several tall figures could be vaguely seen within it. The surroundings were steep cliffs and precipitous cliffs. Strong winds howled. Clan leader, everyone is scattered. It will take at least half a day to gather everyone. The stooped old man slowly stepped forward. His muddy eyes narrowed into slits as he spoke. His name was Huamuzi, and he was an expert from the Dali tribe, one of the 5 great tribes. He had reached LV8 Martial Master Realm, and he had followed the team to the Ancestral Mausoleum. However, what Huamuzi did not expect was that the Ancestral Mausoleum not only formed a small world of its own, but also had the existence of a space array. When the experts of the Dali tribe entered the Ancestral Mausoleum, they were separated by a mysterious space array. How many people do we have now? Before he finished speaking, a middle-aged man in a red robe with an extraordinary temperament and a dignified look on his face also spoke in a faint tone. Clan leader, there are about 6 or 7 people. As you can see, most of them are experts above LV, 5 Martial Master Realm. Facing the middle-aged man in a red robe's inquiry, Huamuzi hurriedly cupped his hands and bowed his head respectfully. His tone was flattering. The other party's name was Abbas. Not only was his strength strong, reaching the half-step to martial spirit realm, but he was also the current clan leader of the Dali tribe. Therefore, facing Abbas's inquiry, Huamuzi did not dare to neglect in the slightest. In addition, his achievements and strength today were all inseparable from Abbas's support. At the same time, he was also one of Abbas's important confidants. Only 6 or 7 people. However, all of them are experts above LV 5 Martial Master Realm. That's enough. Hearing this, Abbas also looked around and nodded slightly. I guess Indra, Hull, and Zhang Han are in a similar situation as us. Their subordinates are all separated by the space formation, so they can't gather for a short period of time. This is a good opportunity for us to explore the ancestral tomb's treasures. As the clan leader of the Dali tribe, although Abbas's strength was not weak, the experts of the Dali tribe under him were ordinary. There was a big gap between them and the experts of the Sha Emperor, Wei Shi, and Polo tribe. Therefore, maintaining such a small scale of exploration was the most advantageous for the Dali tribe. It was the most competitive. Send a message to the others. Tell them not to come and meet me. They can explore the ancestral tomb's treasures on their own. If anyone finds the Imperial Palace ruins, I will reward them handsomely. However, if anyone dares to not report it, kill. When Abbas thought of this, he lifted his eyes to look at Hormusi and opened his mouth again. To him, The other treasures in the ancestral tomb were just appetizers. The only important thing was the Imperial Palace ruins. After all, the martial king realm powerhouse, the legendary Emperor Azir, was buried in the Imperial Palace. Only by finding the Imperial Palace ruins would they have a chance to obtain the inheritance that Azir left behind. Yes, clan leader. Muzi lowered his head again. Just as Abbas and the others began to explore the ancestral tomb, the people of the other 4 tribes did not fall behind. They all began to move. On the other side, in front of a hill, the first to find the Imperial Palace ruins will be rewarded handsomely by me. Looking at the experts in front of him, Indra's face was solemn as he waved his hand. The opening of the ancestral tomb, this time, was a great opportunity for the Polo tribe to dominate the Katar Desert. For this ambition, he had planned for many years. Naturally, he could not slack off. Yes, clan leader. As soon as he finished speaking, the Polo tribe's experts immediately knelt on one knee and spoke in unison. Their faces were filled with the determination to face death. At the same time, outside the ancestral tomb, whoosh, in the sky, a purple figure broke through the air. She was extremely fast. Looks like the ancestral tomb has already been opened by the idiots of the 5 tribes. I'm not too late. This purple figure was tall and slender, with curves in all the right places. Her oval face was currently covered with a thin layer of gauze, which completely covered her exquisite makeup. Her entire body was emitting a terrifying aura of origin energy, as if she was a fairy that had descended from the heavens. Her temperament was extraordinary. Night Devil Fairy. The purple figure with a powerful aura was the mysterious woman who had almost killed Fei Run, Night Devil Fairy. I didn't expect a martial king realm to be buried in such a remote place at the border of the Great Ming Dynasty. I'm quite lucky. Her beautiful eyes moved as she looked at the entrance of the ancestral tomb. In the next moment, Night Devil Fairy chuckled. Her voice was ethereal as she entered the ancestral tomb. Chapter 418. Inside the ancestral mausoleum. After flying along the barren plains for a while, Fei Run and Timu did not find Zhang Han and the others. What appeared before them was a dense forest. Swoosh, swoosh. They broke through the air and slowly landed on the ground. Senior 4th Elder, the ancestral mausoleum is too vast. It will be difficult for the 2 of us to meet up with Senior Zhang and the others in a short period of time. Fei Ren turned to look at Timu, and said with a sigh. It had been half a day since they entered the ancestral mausoleum. Along the way, other than a small number of magical beasts living in the ancestral mausoleum, they did not even see a shadow of a human, let alone Zhang Han and the others and the experts of the other 4 tribes. Conservatively speaking, the small underground world under their feet was at least hundreds of thousands of miles wide. It might even be wider. Yes, the ancestral mausoleum is too big. Raising his head to look at the vast expanse of white sky, Timur also sighed. Although the 2 of them were deep underground, the sky was still as bright as day. At the same time, the ancestral mausoleum also alternated between day and night, as if it was no different from the outside world. It was very magical. To be able to create such a miraculous small underground world as his own tomb, it was enough to show the strength and means of the legendary Emperor Azir, who had reached the martial king realm 10,000 years ago. This is... Narrowing his eyes, Timu's expression changed in the next moment. Then, he looked at the forest not far away in the northwest direction. There, he also sensed several powerful energy fluctuations, and they were very chaotic. It seemed that there was an intense battle going on. Senior 4th Elder. At this moment, Fei Ren also looked over with a thoughtful expression. Obviously, he also noticed something strange. We finally met a living person. I wonder which tribe they are from. Fei Run, kid. Let's go. Seeing that Fei Run had also sensed something, Timur nodded his head. Following which, he leaped forward and flew in the direction of the origin energy fluctuation. Swoosh! Stepping lightly on the ground, Fei Ren followed closely behind. Since there was a battle ahead, it meant that there was an opportunity in the world. All along the way, besides hunting a portion of the spirit rank magical beasts that blocked the way and obtaining a few devil cores, he didn't even see a single person, and it could be said that his gains were extremely small. The mausoleum was vast and boundless. After tens of thousands of years of sedimentation, apart from the magical beasts that resided here and the treasures that Azir had left behind, there were also many natural treasures and spirit herbs that had been born here. Although these treasures were not as valuable as the fortunate encounters left behind by martial Emperor Realm experts, they were still quite valuable. Furthermore, Fei Ren had left the Scorching Sun sect this time to hone his strength. He had also come for the ancestral tomb treasure recorded on the broken ancient tablet. Naturally, he was unwilling to return empty-handed. Bang! Boom! Rumble! In front of a waterfall, an enormous rumbling sound suddenly sounded out, and essence energy scattered in all directions. What followed was a string of curses and sounds of intense fighting. "Kong, you bastard! How dare you go back on your words?" A middle-aged man in a martial robe was enraged. He then swung his saber in the air, and a majestic essence energy turned into a sharp saber radiance. In an instant, it forced the tall man not far away to retreat. The remaining power of the saber radiance sputtered out, leaving a deep gully on the ground. Swoosh! The tall man's body landed steadily at the back. He grinned, and a cold smile appeared on his face. "Wenzhong, what do you mean I went back on my words? This blood pool and the scarlet fruit should belong to me." The tall man's body was not particularly strong, but the essence energy aura on his body was not weak either. He had already reached LV7 Martial Master Realm, and his body was surrounded by wisps of evil chi that were close to materialization. He seemed to be a master who licked blood from the blade. At the same time, not far from the two of them, at the foot of the waterfall, there was a strange blood-colored pool of water quietly flowing. At the center of the blood pool, there was a fiery red vermilion fruit, which seemed to be the reason for the conflict between the two of them. The scarlet fruit was an extremely rare treasure. After swallowing it, it could greatly increase a martial artist's essence energy cultivation. It could be seen that the scarlet fruit in the middle of the blood pool was the size of a baby's fist. It was at least 300 years old. A 300-year-old scarlet fruit was effective for those below the martial spirit realm. For a martial master realm expert, if swallowed and refined it, he could even directly break through a small realm. It was extremely precious. Obviously, the middle-aged man in the martial robe and the tall man had their eyes on the scarlet fruit in the middle of the strange blood pool, so they were fighting. Humph! What a joke! At this moment, in the face of the tall man's rebuttal, the middle-aged man in the martial robe, named Wenzhong, sneered. He raised the weapon in his hand again, and his face was full of disdain. "Kong Bailing, at the beginning, I bent down to team up with you to explore the ancestral tomb treasure because of the Shadi tribe. Do you really think that you are qualified to team up with me?" Wenzhong's strength was also not weak. He had reached LV7 Martial Master Realm. However, in terms of aura, he suppressed the tall man named Kong Bailing, who was infinitely close to LV8 Martial Master Realm. In addition, Wenzhong and Kong Bailing were originally not on the same side. The latter was an expert from the Shadi tribe, one of the 5 tribes. On the other hand, Wenzhong was a martial artist from the outside world. He did not have any sect or family behind him. He was a rogue cultivator. This time, in addition to the experts from the 5 tribes, Wenzhong was one of the rogue cultivators who had heard about the opening of the ancestral tomb. It was purely a coincidence that he had teamed up with Kong Bailing to explore the ancestral tomb treasure together. As for this kind of cooperation, it was equally fragile. It would fall apart at the slightest conflict of interest. This was the case now. "Wenzhong, I have been annoyed by you for a long time. Die." As if his heart had been stabbed, Kong Bailing's face darkened in the next moment. Then his body shot out explosively. At the same time, the origin energy around him surged and instantly turned into 2 sharp green daggers. compared to his opponent's weapon, he was better at using small hidden weapons. Die! His hands trembled slightly, and in the next moment, the green dagger shot out. They swept up a stream of light and pierced through the air. The attack was not ordinary, as it directly attacked Wenzhong. Earth-splitting hack. In the face of Kong Bailing's attack, Wenzhong did not dodge. At the same time, he slashed out with the large saber in his hand. Boom! A large amount of origin energy swept out and instantly turned into a huge origin energy saber light. In an instant, it bounced off the green daggers. In the next moment, its power did not diminish as it charged towards Kong Bailing. Boom! The origin energy saber light raged, and at the same time, it left a deep gully on the ground. It was enough to show that Wenzhong's attack was not ordinary. Chapter 419. Quasi-Grade 6 Martial Arts. Kong Bailing's eyelids twitched as his face turned serious. The power of his opponent's attack was extraordinary and had reached the level of a quasi-grade 6 martial arts. Bang! Boom! While Kong Bailing was in a daze, the Origin Energy Saber Radiance arrived and landed heavily on Kong Bailing's left shoulder, staining half of it with blood. Cough, cough! Like a kite with a broken string, Kong Bailing retreated into the forest. The next moment, he spat out a mouthful of blood and his face turned pale. Although their origin energy cultivation was similar, both at level 7 Martial Master, his opponent's overall strength was slightly above his. In the previous clash, he had suffered a great loss. This bastard saber technique is too powerful. I can't stay here any longer. I have to get the scarlet fruit quickly. Kong Bailing wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his expression changed. The next moment, he took out a small yellow pill and swallowed it. Gulp! As the pill entered his body, a blazing warmth flowed through Kong Bailing's meridians. At the same time, the wound on his left shoulder was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a few breaths, he had recovered to his peak condition. As an expert of the Shadi tribe, Kong Bailing's physical body was clearly stronger than most of the martial artists from the Outer Realm. If it were any other martial artist from the Outer Realm, they would be crippled even if they did not die from a full-powered attack from a level 7 Martial Master. It would be useless even if they consumed pills. These barbarians from the tribe can really take a beating. On the opposite side, Wenzhong frowned when he saw Kong Bailing recover after taking a hit from his saber. Although his opponent's strength was not as good as his physical body was strong enough. It would not be easy for him to finish him off in a short period of time. Drip, drip, not far away, at the center of the strange blood pool, the blood-red vermilion fruit was becoming more and more beautiful. At this moment, it was dripping with dew, as if it was close to maturity and could be picked with a light pick. A 300-year-old scarlet fruit was worth no less than a level 5 pill. Because of this, Wenzhong and Kong Bailing did not hesitate to meet each other on the battlefield and fight. Earth-splitting strike. Seeing that the vermilion fruit was nearing maturity, Wenzhong once again launched his attack in order to avoid any unexpected complications. The large saber in his hand slashed out diagonally as a large amount of yuan power transformed into a biting cold blade glow that directly attacked Kong Bailing. This move was his best martial art. Its power was comparable to a quasi-rank 6 martial art. Ordinary martial artists of the same level would find it difficult to resist. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the saber light broke through the air. In the face of the biting cold saber light, Kong Bailing acted out of character, as if he did not intend to meet it head-on. Boom! He stomped his feet on the ground and leaped into the air at the same time. He dodged the attack of the saber light, as if he was gliding. Then, he headed straight for the strange blood pool not far away. The purpose of creating a diversion was to obtain the vermilion fruit. Bastard! Stop it! At the same time, Wenzhong also sensed the other party's intention. At this moment, he also let out a furious roar. His figure turned into a shadow and flew toward the strange blood pool. Idiot! I will not waste my time with you here. Once I obtain the vermilion fruit, I will deal with you later. Kong Bailing's speed was extremely fast as he ignored Wen Zhong's angry roar. His face was also ferocious as he instantly landed in the middle of the strange blood pool. The vermilion fruit is mine. Looking at the beautiful vermilion fruit that was covered in silver dew, Kong Bailing's face was filled with greed and desire. He looked vaguely excited. His Yuan power cultivation was at level 7 Martial Master Realm. Furthermore, he had been stuck at this realm for many years and could not break through the shackles of the martial way. Now, if he obtained this 300-year-old vermilion fruit, his Yuan power cultivation could break through again and step into level 8 Martial Master Realm. A level 8 Martial Master Realm expert was extremely rare even in the 5 main tribes. Even in the Sha Di tribe, which was behind Kong Bailing, some elders in the tribe were only at level 8 Martial Master Realm. Therefore, he was determined to obtain this vermilion fruit. Swoosh! Kong Bailing squinted his eyes. In the next moment, he stretched out his right palm and pointed at the vermilion fruit in the middle of the blood pool. Kong Bailing, how dare you? At this moment, seeing that Kong Bailing was about to pick the vermilion fruit on the strange blood pool, Wen Zhong, who had rushed over, was furious. He once again waved his saber and slashed out a sharp saber radiance, as if he wanted to stop Kong Bailing. Boom! Swoosh! 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 The blade light cut through the air with extraordinary power. Just as it was about to smash into Kong Bailing's body, the strange pool of blood that was originally calm and tranquil suddenly became restless. Countless blood-colored vines that were covered in thorns actually crazily surged out from the pool, shattering the blade light at the same time. What is this? At this moment, in the face of the blood-red vines that suddenly emerged from the pool, not only Kong Bailing, who was in the middle of the blood pool, but even Wen Zhong, who was beside him, was shocked. Blood-red, twisted. The blood-red vines that surged out from the pool were like demonic beasts that were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. They emitted an unsettling aura and at the same time shrouded the entire strange blood pool. At this moment, they were swaying non-stop as if they had a trace of intelligence. Swoosh! Just as the two of them were stunned, the blood-colored vines that gushed out from the pool began to move. Dozens of blood-colored vines shot out at lightning speed. Like a twisted hemp rope, they immediately shot towards Kong Bailing to strangle him. Each of these blood-red vines was incomparably thick and sturdy. They were at least several feet wide. They seemed to be a rare and strange spiritual plant. Moreover, they were covered with sharp thorns. Once entangled by them, it would be very dangerous. Not good. At this moment, seeing the blood-red vines suddenly launch an attack, Kong Bailing, who was in the middle of the blood pool, narrowed his eyes. In the next moment, he turned around and flew towards the dense forest behind him, intending to escape from this place. Swoosh! Although Kong Bailing's speed was not bad, the blood-red vine's attack speed was even faster. In a breath's time, they had caught up with him. Countless blood-red vines twisted and danced in the air, instantly entangling and binding him. He was like a human dumpling, with only his head exposed. Kong Bailing was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Even if he used all his skills, he could not escape. The power of the blood-red vines was like a shaking mountain, firmly entangling and confining him. Even Yuan power could not break through. Boom! Both of Kong Bailing's eyes were blood-red. In the next moment, the blood-red vines ruthlessly twisted and crushed Kong Bailing's body on the spot, turning him into a pool of blood. Not even his bones were left behind. The air was instantly filled with the smell of blood. Voila! Voila! Countless blood-red vines slowly spread out and then absorbed the pool of blood on the ground. After absorbing Kong Bailing's blood, the aura of the blood-red vines became even stronger. It was extremely strange. In one move, Kong Bailing, who was at level 7 Martial Master Realm, could not resist at all. Not far away, Wen Zhong, who had witnessed this bloody scene, was already scared out of his wits. His eyes were filled with horror. What a terrifying spiritual plant. So all of this was a trap created by it. Now, he finally understood that the scarlet fruit in the middle of the strange blood pool was not an opportunity, but a bait deliberately set by the blood-red vines in front of him. Chapter 420. Run. That was the only thought in Wenzhong's mind. The blood-colored vine that emerged from the blood pool was a spiritual plant that was extremely lethal. Moreover, this spiritual plant had a slight spiritual intelligence and knew how to use the red fruit in the middle of the blood pool as bait to kill warriors who passed by. Swoosh! Wenzhong jumped onto the treetops, and in the next moment, he turned around and fled into the depths of the forest. His speed was pushed to the limit, and he was like a frightened bird. However, the blood-red vine speed was also extremely fast. In just a few breaths, it had caught up with his figure. Oh no! Wenzhong's face was filled with shock. Before he could react, two huge blood-colored vines quickly wrapped around his legs and dragged him down from the sky. His body crashed heavily onto the ground. Swoosh! Bang! Wenzhong's body fell to the ground. His face turned pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood-red vine's strength was extremely strong. Even if it was just a light flick, if one was hit by this attack, anyone below LV6 Martial Master Realm would die on the spot. Damn it, what kind of spiritual plant is this? Fear surged in Wenzhong's eyes. At this moment, his heart was filled with despair. Although he had heard that some natural treasures could turn into mystical spirit plants with a trace of intelligence after years of precipitation, this was the first time he had seen a spirit plant as terrifying as the blood-red vine in front of him that could devour cultivators as food. Swoosh! Without giving his opponent any time to react, the blood-red vine launched another attack after pulling Wenzhong down from the sky. A large number of vines attacked again, like a blood-red rainstorm that covered the sky and earth, instantly engulfing and destroying Wenzhong. Ah! Wenzhong let out a shrill scream. In the next moment, he was crushed by the blood-red vine and turned into a pool of blood. Not even his bones were left. That miserable scene was similar to the tragic death of Kong Bailing. There was no resistance at all, although Wenzhong was slightly stronger than Kong Bailing, who was at LV7 Martial Master Realm. He was still unable to escape from the blood-colored vines. The blood-red vine in front of him had been deeply rooted in the strange blood pool for an unknown number of years and had swallowed the blood essence of countless warriors and magical beasts. It had long since grown to a terrifying level. A large number of blood-red vines spread out, seemingly able to cover the sky. Voila! Guru grew. After a couple of breaths, the blood-colored vine that was originally baring its fangs and brandishing its claws gradually calmed down after swallowing Wenzhong's essence blood, after which it slowly withdrew into the strange blood pool as though it had never appeared. At the center of the blood pool, the vermilion fruit also silently stood there. Its color became increasingly bright red, as if it was attracting the next prey. Not long after, Fei Rin and Timur also hurried over in front of the waterfall. No one, looking around and not finding any traces of warriors, Fei Rin's face was a little surprised. Just now, he had indeed detected a few strong yuan power fluctuations nearby. However, there was no one in sight. In front of the waterfall, there was nothing but a strange blood pool. There's a remnant yuan power aura here. They should have just left. Timur's face turned cold as he opened his mouth to speak. His yuan power cultivation had already reached LV7 Martial Master Realm. Even a junior like Fei Run could detect the movement, so naturally he could also sense it. That is, turning his gaze, Fei Run also looked at the center of the blood pool not far away. Then he was stunned. Vermilion fruit, Timur exclaimed in a low voice. He was naturally very clear about the value of the vermilion fruit. 100-year-old vermilion fruit could be sold for a sky-high price. Moreover, the vermilion fruit in the center of the blood pool was at least 300 years old. It was close to maturity, and its value was even more precious. Could it be that those people were fighting over this vermilion fruit? His eyes were burning. At this moment, Timur's breathing had become somewhat hurried. If he could devour a 300-year-old vermilion fruit, His yuan power cultivation would also improve and break through to LV8 Martial Master Realm. Naturally, he would not be willing to let go of such an opportunity. Senior Fourth Elder, there are obvious traces of a battle here. However, there is no one here. Even if these people died together, it is impossible for there not to be a corpse left. Although the vermilion fruit was expensive, Fei Run was very calm and did not let greed get to his head. Who knows? Maybe these people really killed each other and all of them died. On the other hand, the vermilion fruit in front of us is very valuable. Licking his dry lips, Timur also spoke. He was determined to obtain this 300-year-old vermilion fruit. Senior Fourth Elder, why do I feel that this blood pool is a little strange? Although the temptation of the vermilion fruit was not small, Fei Rin still felt a little strange. Therefore, he did not act rashly. There is nothing strange. Glancing back at Fei Rin, Timur smiled faintly and said, "Kid, as a young man, you are too cautious." In his opinion, with his LV7 Martial Master Realm Yuan power cultivation, he could casually take the vermilion fruit in the middle of the blood pool. It was not a big deal, and there was no need to be overly vigilant. Swish! With a leap, Timur landed in the middle of the blood pool. It seemed that he did not take Fei Rin's words to heart. Seeing that Timur's attention was all on the vermilion fruit, Fei Rin narrowed his eyes and pondered. He did not continue to stop him. Timur's Yuan power cultivation was at LV7 Martial Master Realm. As the fourth elder of his Shotoa tribe, he was not weak. In addition, with Fei Rin's help, even if there was something strange, the two of them could deal with it together. The vermilion fruit is mine. Arriving at the middle of the blood pool, Timur's old face revealed a trace of excitement, and his eyes were red. Swish! However, just as Timur's right hand was about to reach out, there was a sudden change in the next moment. Boom! The originally calm blood pool suddenly trembled. Immediately, countless huge blood-colored vines swept out from the bottom of the pool. They were awe-inspiring, like poisonous snakes baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. They immediately attacked Timur's body in the middle of the blood pool. What? At this moment, facing the sudden change, Timur's face also changed slightly. In the next moment, his body moved to the side, barely avoiding the attack of a few blood-colored vines. Rumble! The huge blood-colored vines fiercely smashed into the pool, creating a series of ripples and rumbles. Obviously, they were powerful. This is bloodthirsty ancient vine. Not far away, seeing a large number of blood-colored vines suddenly emerging from the pool, Fei Rin's face also turned cold. Just now, he had sensed that something was wrong. Now, it seemed that his premonition was right. The blood pool in front of him was indeed strange. There was actually a bloodthirsty ancient vine living at the bottom of the pool. As for the 300-year-old vermilion fruit, it was deliberately left as bait by the bloodthirsty ancient vine in front of him. It did not devour it and used it to kill warriors and demonic beasts that passed by. Chapter 421. Bloodthirsty Ancient Vanilla, as its name suggested. This was a rare spiritual plant that fed on the blood essence of living creatures. Not only was it powerful, but it was also very destructive. The vines were full of poisonous thorns. Ordinary martial master experts would find it difficult to fight against it. Even some half-step to martial spirit realm experts could be swallowed by the bloodthirsty ancient vine if they underestimated it. In addition, the bloodthirsty ancient vine was also very tenacious. As long as its life source was not cut off, it could grow endlessly. In some ancient books, there were records of the bloodthirsty ancient vine. Due to its powerful destructive power and tenacious life force, some ancient sects would cultivate the bloodthirsty ancient vine as a spiritual item to protect the sect from external threats. Bloodthirsty ancient vine. Fei Run, kid, do you know what this is? Timur quickly retreated to the dense forest behind him. At this moment, there was still some lingering fear on his face. Previously, his attention was all on the red fruit in the middle of the blood pool. He did not expect that there would be a bloodthirsty ancient vine living under the pool. If he had not reacted in time, he would not have been able to escape and would have become food in the stomach of the bloodthirsty ancient vine. The bloodthirsty ancient vine in front of him was very large. He did not know how much blood essence it had absorbed. Its size alone was several people's height. Moreover, it seemed to cover the entire blood pool. There were vines and tentacles everywhere, like a blood-colored cloud that covered the sky. Facing such a huge monster, Timu was not confident even with his origin power cultivation of level 7 Martial Master Realm. Senior 4th Elder, be careful. This is a very rare spiritual plant. Not only is it very destructive, but it also has tenacious life force. If you don't cut off its life source, it will be very difficult to destroy it. Nodding, Farron also jumped and came to Timu's side. Timu did not recognize the bloodthirsty ancient vine, but he was very familiar with it. When he first entered the Scorching Sun sect, he was lucky to know the origin of this spiritual plant from some ancient books in the sect. There was only one way to deal with the bloodthirsty ancient vine, and that was to cut off its life source and completely destroy its life source. Bloodthirsty ancient vine. It seems that the red fruit is not that easy to get. Maybe that group of people died in the hands of this thing. Hearing this, Timu took a deep breath, his expression grave. Just as Fei Run had said, the bloodthirsty ancient vine's destructive power and vitality were extremely strong. Even if a few of its vines were destroyed, it would still be impossible to completely destroy the bloodthirsty ancient vine without severing its lifeblood. Swoosh! Swish! As if unwilling to be entangled with Timur and Fei Run, the bloodthirsty ancient vine in the center of the blood pool once again launched an attack. A large number of blood-red vines whizzed out like a blood-red cloud, instantly covering more than half of the surrounding open space. The blood-red vines were everywhere, and they were so fast that it was difficult to avoid them. Break! With a flip of his hand, Fei Rin reached for the Azure Dragon halberd behind him. In the next moment, his wrist also flicked slightly. At the same time, the Azure Dragon halberd brought forth a golden halberd light, instantly forcing back the attacking blood-colored vines. Poochie! With another sweep of the halberd, a large number of blood-colored vines were also cut off by Fei Run. The vines fell to the ground, leaving behind a pool of strange red blood. Although the bloodthirsty ancient vine's destructive power was extremely strong, it was still unrealistic to think that it could devour Fei Run with just these vines. Slash! On the other side, facing a large number of blood-colored vines, Timur also attacked with all his might, not daring to hold back. Boom! With a blow of his palm, a large amount of earthy yellow origin energy gushed out from Timur's body. Like a sharp blade, it instantly cut the attacking blood-colored vines in half. It was unstoppable. Bang! 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 A large number of blood-colored vines were cut off by the two of them. After a few flops, they gradually melted into a pool of red blood, as if their vitality had died. This bloodthirsty ancient vine is only SOSO. After repelling the bloodthirsty ancient vine's attack, Timur's face was filled with confidence. With Fei Rin's help, the bloodthirsty ancient vine couldn't hurt him at all. Countless attacking vines and tentacles were cut off. Swish! Swish! Gurgle, gurgle. Seeing that it couldn't do anything to Timur and Fei Run, the bloodthirsty ancient vine in the blood pool also retracted its tentacles and sharpness. The next moment, it slowly retracted back into the pool, as if it had given up the chase. It was very strange. It's not coming anymore. Seeing this scene, Timur's face was a little surprised. He was also very puzzled by the bloodthirsty ancient vine's strange behavior. Just as Fei Rin said earlier, the bloodthirsty ancient vine usually ate the blood essence of living creatures, especially the blood essence of warriors and magical beasts. Under normal circumstances, the bloodthirsty ancient vine wouldn't give up chasing its prey. It seems that the destructive power of this bloodthirsty ancient vine will decrease after leaving a certain range of the blood pool. the azure dragon halberd in his hand, was in front of him. The next moment, Fei Rin said faintly with a thoughtful tone, after a round of fighting, they had retreated to the back of the dense forest, which was about 100 meters away from the blood pool in front of the waterfall. This seemed to have reached the limit of the bloodthirsty ancient vine's pursuit range. After all, the bloodthirsty ancient vine's lifeblood was still rooted at the bottom of the blood pool, so it couldn't chase after its prey without restraint. This was also the reason why the vermilion fruit stood in the middle of the blood pool and wasn't devoured by the bloodthirsty ancient vine. As a spiritual plant, the bloodthirsty ancient vine already had a faint trace of intelligence and knew how to use the vermilion fruit as bait to hunt down warriors and magical beasts. Fei Rin boy, this bloodthirsty ancient vine doesn't seem to be much. If I wasn't careless at the beginning, I wouldn't be afraid of this spiritual plant. Looking at the bloodthirsty ancient vine that had retracted back into the blood pool, Timur spoke again with a confident tone. Senior Fourth Elder, you still have some thoughts about this thing? Hearing this, Fei Rin's face revealed a trace of strangeness. Looking at the other party's expression, it seemed that he didn't intend to leave just like that. That's right, the vermilion fruit in the middle of the blood pool is at least 300 years old and is very valuable. We can't just leave like that. As long as we get rid of the bloodthirsty ancient vine in the pool, this vermilion fruit will be ours. Nodding his head, Timur spoke again with a trace of greed in his voice and a fiery gaze in his eyes. Now that the ancestral mausoleum had been opened, in addition to the experts of the 5 major tribes, there were also countless warriors and rogue cultivators from the outside world. Opportunities could only be encountered by chance and not sought, and Timur didn't want to give up the vermilion fruit in front of him. After all, compared to fighting for the inheritance and treasures of the mausoleum's owner, dealing with the bloodthirsty ancient vine in front of him was obviously easier. Moreover, Timur had been stagnant at the 7th level of the Martial Master realm for many years and was unable to break through. Now that there was such a great opportunity in front of him, he naturally didn't want to give it up. Timur had already made up his mind. As long as he joined forces with Fei Rin, it wouldn't be a problem for the two of them to deal with the bloodthirsty ancient vine in the pool. Moreover, Fei Rin's origin power cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the Martial Master realm. Compared to him, Timur needed the 300-year-old vermilion fruit more. Boy, as long as you help me get that vermilion fruit, you can choose from the beauties and treasures of the Shotoa tribe. Also, I'll owe you a favor. Thinking of this, Timur's breathing became a little hurried as he looked at Fei Rin. Chapter 422. Okay. With a helpless expression, Fei Rin nodded. Although the bloodthirsty ancient vine in front of them had astonishing destructive power, the two of them could still deal with it if they worked together. Okay, Fei Rin boy, I'll block the attack of this bloodthirsty ancient vine. You go and cut off its lifeblood. Seeing Fei Rin nod, Timur's expression was also slightly happy. If he was alone, it would be easy for him to deal with the bloodthirsty ancient vine, but it would be difficult for him to find the time to cut off its lifeblood. As long as he didn't cut off the lifeblood of the bloodthirsty ancient vine, it would be impossible to completely destroy this spiritual plant. Therefore, he still needed Fei Rin's help. Do it. With a leap, Timur once again rushed toward the blood pool on the opposite side. The origin energy around him surged and blasted out dozens of earthy yellow palm energy. Swoosh! Rumble! Seeing Timur's attack, the alarmed bloodthirsty ancient vine woke up once again. Countless blood-colored vines surged out of the pool in an aggressive manner. Whoosh! With a swing of the azure dragon halberd in his hand, Fei Rin instantly cut off countless blood-colored vines. At the same time, his speed didn't decrease as he rushed toward the center of the blood pool. His target wasn't the scarlet fruit, but the lifeblood of the bloodthirsty ancient vine at the bottom of the spring. Plop! Under Timur's cover, Fei Rin also entered the strange blood pool as if there was no one around. Gurgle, gurgle. In the blood pool, there were blood-colored vines bearing their fangs and brandishing their claws. Following that, there was an extremely strong smell of blood, which made people feel a little disgusted. It seems that the bloodthirsty ancient vine has devoured the blood essence of many magical beasts and creatures in the past 10,000 years. Now that the ancestral tomb has opened, a large number of powerful warriors have entered. If this thing is given a little more time, it might grow to an even more terrifying level. With a slightly stern expression, Fei Ren didn't dare to delay and continued to swim toward the depths of the blood pool. As Timur had attracted most of the bloodthirsty ancient vine's firepower, Fei Ren, who had escaped into the blood pool, had an easy time and was not attacked by the bloodthirsty ancient vines. After all, even though spirit plants possessed a trace of intelligence, they were far too lacking compared to human martial artists. They simply did not know what a diversion tactic was. Over there, in the depths of the blood pool, a crimson dot gradually appeared. Upon closer inspection, Fei Ren's expression turned solemn. A heart-like object was trembling slightly. Its entire body was covered with deep red meridians and blood vessels. A large number of tentacles and blood-red vines grew around it, as if it had a mind of its own. It was the lifeblood of the ancient bloodthirsty vine. Although the bloodthirsty ancient vine's destructive power was shocking, its lifeblood was very fragile. As long as its lifeline was cut off, the bloodthirsty ancient vine would not be able to replenish its life force and die completely. Go! With his right hand tightly gripping the green dragon halberd, Fei Ren circulated his golden yuan power and threw out the green dragon halberd with all his might. The halberd cut through the water, mixed with the powerful yuan power, like a sharp arrow, ruthlessly piercing the lifeblood of the ancient bloodthirsty vine. In the next moment, the heart exploded and a large amount of blood spread out in all directions. After the fatal blow, the ancient bloodthirsty vine, which had been baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, went completely crazy. Its attacks became more ferocious and chaotic, as if it was counterattacking before its death. Swoosh! Swoosh! In the depths of the blood pool, countless blood-red vines instantly wrapped around him. In the face of the ancient bloodthirsty vine's counterattack, Fei Ren's expression was calm. He flipped his hand and summoned the Immortal refining cauldron. At the same time, he circulated the Bodhidharma golden body to the limit. Under the dual power of the Immortal refining cauldron and the Bodhidharma golden body, countless blood-red vines were shattered and turned into pure energy of heaven and earth. They were all absorbed by Fei Ren's Dantian, and his yuan power cultivation also rose a little at this moment. The Immortal refining cauldron, the only immortal treasure in the universe, could swallow and refine everything in heaven and earth. It was no joke. At the same time, in front of the blood pool under the waterfall, although Fei Ren had shattered the attacks of the ancient bloodthirsty vine, who was on the ground, was in a precarious situation and was in danger. Just as he had forced back the first round of attacks of the ancient bloodthirsty vine and was about to take the red fruit in the middle of the pool, the ancient bloodthirsty vine launched a crazy counterattack in the next moment, and its attack for several times stronger than before. Boom! Another palm strike repelled the encirclement of several blood-red vines. In the next moment, Timur's feet were entangled by other blood-red vines. The sharp thorns pierced into his body, and the deadly poison began to spread all over Timur's meridians, devouring the vitality in his body. What? At this moment, in the face of the crazy counterattack of the ancient bloodthirsty vine, Timur was horrified and a trace of fear appeared in his eyes. In the beginning, he had underestimated the destructive power of the ancient bloodthirsty vine. Now that he had lost the help of Fei Ren, facing the counterattack of the ancient bloodthirsty vine, Timur's yuan power cultivation was only at LV 7 Martial Master Realm. Swoosh! 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 In the next moment, Timur's body was entangled by countless blood-red vines. A large number of blood-red vines completely wrapped Timur's body into a human dumpling. The thorns pierced his bones, and blood flowed everywhere. He only let out a shrill scream, and then turned into a pool of blood. Not even his bones were left. All these changes were because Fei Ren had cut off the lifeblood of the ancient bloodthirsty vine with one strike, which triggered the final crazy counterattack of the ancient bloodthirsty vine. Although Timu Er's Yuan power cultivation was not weak, having reached LV7 Martial Master Realm, he was still unable to deal with the blood-red vines that filled the sky. Whether it was the poisonous thorns on the vines or the tentacles of the ancient bloodthirsty vine, it was difficult to escape death. Compared to Fei Ren's endless defensive methods, Timu the fourth elder of the Shotoa tribe, was weak and powerless. Boom! After killing Timu with one strike, the ancient bloodthirsty vine in the pool had also completely lost its vitality. Countless vine tentacles fell to the ground, and in the next moment, they melted into a pool of blood, completely motionless. After its lifeblood was destroyed, the ancient bloodthirsty vine had completely lost its vitality. Even if Fei Ren did not make a move in the end, it would have died on its own. At the same time, swoosh! After retrieving the immortal refining cauldron, the golden light around him gradually dimmed. In the next moment, Fei Ren also rushed out of the strange blood pool and landed steadily on the ground. In the pool, he had also suffered the counterattack of the ancient bloodthirsty vine, but the struggling ancient bloodthirsty vine could not hurt him at all. Just by relying on the power of the Dharma golden body, Fei Ren could easily break the attack of the ancient bloodthirsty vine. As for the poisonous thorns on the blood-red vines, they did not even have the chance to touch him, let alone hurt him. Although the scarlet fruit is rare, compared to this, my life is priceless. Looking at Timu, who had been torn apart by the ancient bloodthirsty vine and turned into a pool of blood, Fei Ren's expression was somewhat complicated. Although he had cut off the lifeblood of the ancient bloodthirsty vine and completely cut off its possibility of revival, due to Timu Er's greed and rash advance, he was also killed by the ancient bloodthirsty vine's crazy counterattack. In the end, this 300-year-old scarlet fruit still fell into Fei Ren's hands. Chapter 423. Boom! With a wave of his hand, strands of elemental energy turned into burning elemental energy, true fire, and evaporated all the blood on the ground. In the next moment, Fei Ren also cupped his hands in the direction of Timu Er's death. It could be considered as a farewell to the former fourth elder of the Shotoa tribe. If Timu had not been attacked by the bloodthirsty ancient vine, he might have been able to save him. However, life was unpredictable. Fate and luck were things that no one could say for sure. Swoosh! After dealing with the mess, Fei Ren immediately jumped and arrived at the center of the blood pool. Is this the scarlet fruit? It is indeed a rare treasure. Fei Ren was surprised as he reached out and gently plucked the scarlet fruit from the center of the pool. Originally, he did not want to covet this scarlet fruit. However, reality was so dramatic. Timu was dead, and the bloodthirsty ancient vine's lifeblood had been cut off by him. Now, this 300-year-old scarlet fruit naturally fell into Fei Ren's hands. His elemental energy cultivation was now at LV3 Martial Master. Previously, in the depths of the blood pool, Fei Ren had absorbed a part of the bloodthirsty ancient vine's essence. He was not far from breaking through and only needed half of his total elemental energy. If he swallowed this 300-year-old scarlet fruit, Fei Ren's elemental energy cultivation would most likely break through and enter LV4 Martial Master. Let's try it. After making up his mind, Fei Ren did not hesitate at all. His palm suddenly exerted force and immediately shattered the scarlet fruit in his palm. Boom! The scarlet fruit shattered and at the same time sputtered out wisps of blood-red essence. They were suspended in the air like raindrops. Absorb. With a cold gaze, Fei Ren immediately activated the Dharma 1000 conversion technique and absorbed all the blood-red essence into his body. All of it turned into pure elemental energy and flowed into his dantian. As a large amount of pure elemental energy entered his body, the aura on his body became more and more intense and gradually rose to a peak. After a few minutes, the essence of the scarlet fruit was completely absorbed. Fei Ren's rising aura gradually stopped and was infinitely close to LV4 Martial Master. Just a little bit more? What a pity. Fei Ren's face revealed a trace of regret. Even though he had consumed this 300-year-old vermilion fruit, it still could not help him break through his cultivation level. At that moment, he was only a step away from breaking through to rank 4 Martial Master Realm. He could only be considered a half step to rank 4 Martial Master Realm. For an ordinary Martial Master, swallowing a 300-year-old vermilion fruit was more than enough for them to break through a small realm. However, Fei Ren was not an ordinary martial artist. His dantian had fused with the immortal refining divine Cauldron. Not only was his innate talent and comprehension far superior to ordinary martial artists, but the capacity of his dantian was also several times that of ordinary martial artists. Therefore, the total amount of origin energy required for each breakthrough was incomparably huge. Although he did not break through to the 4th level Martial Master realm in one go, Fei Ren was not discouraged. After all, he was only one step away from breaking through. In just a few days, he could officially break through to LV4 Martial Master Realm. At that moment, due to the death of the bloodthirsty ancient vine, the water that originally covered the entire blood pool gradually receded, revealing its true appearance. Previously, the reason why the blood pool could exist and nurture a 300-year-old vermilion fruit was all because of the bloodthirsty ancient vine. Once this spiritual plant was destroyed, it would lose its endless vitality and the blood pool would cease to exist. That is, after the blood pool receded, a spacious, deep pit was revealed. In the next moment, Fei Ren's gaze was attracted by something else. In the depths of the blood pool, where the bloodthirsty ancient vine's life root rested, there was a demonic blood-red lotus. The blood-red lotus was not big, only the size of a human's palm. Its roots were also very fresh, as if it had just matured. Drops of dew could be seen dripping from it. There's actually a treasure. Seeing this scene, Fei Ren could not help but be slightly surprised and exclaim softly, "Blood lotus." If he didn't remember wrongly, the blood-colored lotus flower in the depths of the blood pool before him was the rare treasure of heaven and earth, the blood lotus flower. Moreover, this blood lotus had already matured and could be directly plucked. A matured blood lotus was at least 1,000 years old. Its value was far greater than the vermilion fruit in the middle of the pool. It's actually a blood lotus. I didn't expect that other than the vermilion fruit, this blood lotus is the real treasure. Fei Ren leaped and in the next moment arrived in front of the blood lotus. At the same time, he reached out his hand and gently plucked it, his eyes shining. Previously, due to the obstruction of the bloodthirsty ancient vine, he did not immediately discover this blood lotus that was hidden in its life root. Fortunately, the bloodthirsty ancient vine did not choose to devour the blood lotus. Otherwise, it would be a waste. Looking at the blood lotus in his palm, Fei Ren took a deep breath. In terms of quality, this blood lotus had matured and was at least 1,000 years old. It was worthy of being called a 1,000-year blood lotus and was worth a lot. Other than that, the 1,000-year blood lotus contained rich blood chi essence, similar to the blood essence stone in Fei Ren's hand. It could also be absorbed by a martial artist to improve his physique and origin power cultivation. I've really picked up a treasure this time. Fei Ren's heart was filled with joy as his expression changed. For a spiritual plant like the bloodthirsty ancient vine, devouring a 1,000-year blood lotus was similar to devouring some magical beasts and martial artists. However, the bloodthirsty ancient vine in the pool did not choose to devour the 1,000-year blood lotus. Fei Ren did not know the reason, but he could guess a little. Perhaps the bloodthirsty ancient vine wanted to wait for the 1,000-year blood lotus to mature for a while more to achieve the greatest effect. However, these were only Fei Ren's guesses. In any case, the final opportunity had benefited him. After devouring the vermilion fruit, Fei Ren was only a step away from breaking through to level 4 Martial Master Realm. Now that he had picked up a 1,000-year blood lotus, it was no different from sending charcoal in snowy weather. Refine. Fei Ren summoned the refining Immortal Cauldron. In the next moment, he threw the 1,000-year blood lotus in his palm into the cauldron and began to refine and absorb it. Now that the refining Immortal Cauldron had merged with his Dantian, life and death were inseparable. Regardless of whether he directly used his cultivation technique to absorb the 1,000-year blood lotus or used the refining Immortal Cauldron to devour and refine, the final effect was the same. Boom! After an unknown period of time, Fei Ren's Dantian trembled and buzzed. In the next moment, the Yuan power aura in his body surged, and he officially stepped in a level 4 Martial Master Realm. At the same time, his essence, energy, and spirit were restored to their peak state. Level 4 Martial Master Realm. Fei Ren exhaled a mouthful of turbid air heavily. His face was filled with emotions, and a glint of excitement flashed across his eyes. After refining the 1,000-year blood lotus, his Yuan power cultivation had finally broken through the shackles of the realm and stepped into level 4 Martial Master Realm. Ever since Fei Ren stepped into the martial way, every breakthrough was not easy to come by. Following that, his strength also increased tremendously. With his current strength, if he used all his trump cards, he could contend against a level 8 or even level 9 Martial Master Realm expert. Chapter 424. It's time to leave. After making a breakthrough in his cultivation, there was no point in staying here any longer. Fei Ren immediately decided to leave. Whoosh! Fei Ren shot into the air and flew towards another direction in the forest. The ancestral mausoleum beneath him had been underground for tens of thousands of years. Apart from the treasures and legacies left behind by Azir, there were also many natural treasures and opportunities. There were also many demonic beasts living in the ancestral mausoleum. Apart from that, there were also many cultivators and loose cultivators entering the ancestral mausoleum. Adding on the experts of the 5 tribes, the competition within the ancestral mausoleum was extremely intense. If he was too slow, he might not even be able to get anything. Moreover, the ruins of the Desert Dynasty's palace had yet to be found. The opportunities and inheritances left behind by Azir, as well as the enormous treasures, were most likely related to the palace ruins. At the same time, the palace ruins were the focus of the 5 tribes. Fei Ren also had the same idea about the opportunity inheritance left behind by a martial king realm expert. As such, apart from searching for the treasures in the ancestral mausoleum, he also had to find a way to meet up with Zhang Han, Kublai, and the others. After all, only the people of the 5 tribes knew about the palace ruins. The other cultivators could only follow them. At the edge of a cliff in the ancestral mausoleum, the grass and trees were all yellow and dim. At the same time, a few figures appeared. Third brother, do you have any news about Timu and Fei Ren? Zhang Han turned around and looked at Kublai as he spoke in a deep voice. It had been close to a day since the ancestral mausoleum had been opened, and the experts of the Shichuo tribe had more or less met up. However, there was no news about Timu and Fei Ren. It was as if they had disappeared into thin air. I've already sent a message to Timu but there has been no response. As for that boy Fei Ren, his whereabouts are also unknown. Kublai shook his head and said helplessly to Zhang Han's question. Timu was the 4th elder of the Shichuo tribe, and he had a secret sound transmission technique. As long as there were no accidents, he could easily contact him. However, Kublai had already done everything he could, but there was still no response. Could something have happened to 4th brother? A green-clothed old man stepped forward after his voice sounded. His tone was solemn. Compared to Fei Ren, a martial artist from the outside world, he was more concerned about Timur's whereabouts and safety. After all, Timur was the 4th elder of the Shichuo tribe. He had fought alongside them for many years and had a deep relationship with him. In addition, for the opening of the ancestral mausoleum, the Suchuo tribe had sent out almost all of their elites, including the 5 elders. If something happened to Timu the 4th elder, it would be a great loss to the Suchuo tribe. Timu, or his cultivation, is at the 7th level of the martial master realm. In the entire 5 great tribes, the number of people who can injure him can be counted on one hand. This fellow must have been delayed by something. Before the green-clothed old man finished speaking, another tall old man spoke up. The tall elder's cultivation was not weak. He was about the same as Timu back then. He had already reached the 7th level of the martial master realm. He was also one of the 5 great elders of the Shotoa tribe, rank 5th. As for the green-clothed old man beside him, he was the 2nd elder of the Shochuo tribe. His cultivation was second only to Zhang Han, and he had reached the 10th level of the martial master realm. I hope so. For now, let's search for the palace ruins first to prevent the other 4 great tribes from seizing the opportunity. Hearing this, Zhang Han nodded slightly with a deep look in his eyes. They had no other goal in entering the ancestral mausoleum this time, and that was to obtain Azir's inheritance. That was the most important thing. Let's go. Zhang Han's figure broke through the air and immediately left the cliff, heading toward the depths of the ancestral mausoleum. Back then, their Shochuo tribe's ancestor had left behind a message that contained clues to the palace ruins' whereabouts. In order to seize the opportunity, Zhang Han and the others did not dare to be negligent. They focused on searching for the palace ruins' exact location. Even if they encountered demonic beasts or martial masters from the outside world along the way, most of them would choose to take a detour. Other than the Shochuo tribe, the other 4 great tribes, and some martial masters from the outside world who knew the inside story were also restless. They only had one goal, and that was to find the palace ruins' whereabouts. Right now, while everyone was searching for the palace ruins' whereabouts, Fei Run was not in a hurry at all. He was still pacing around the periphery of the ancestral mausoleum and did not venture deeper. This was all because he had discovered a problem. In the small underground world of the ancestral mausoleum, which was almost the periphery, there were also signs of sandworm activity. Before leaving the Scorching Sun sect, Fei Run had accepted a 5-star sect mission. The mission objective was to kill a sandworm king and obtain its head. If he completed this 5-star sect mission, he would receive 2,000 contribution points. To Fei Run, this was already a considerable amount of wealth. Moreover, searching for the treasure of a martial king realm powerhouse had no conflict with killing a sandworm king. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Since the palace ruins had yet to appear, he still had time to complete this 5-star sect mission. Above the sky, it should be around here. Looking at a desolate sand slope on the ground, Fei Run pondered. I don't know if I can catch a sandworm king. To him, ordinary sandworms were weak. Their demonic energy waves were only around the middle mystic rank, which was almost equivalent to a 6th or 7th level star realm martial artist. He could easily kill them. Moreover, the demonic cores in these ordinary sandworms were of average value. Fei Run was not interested at all. If he wanted to kill, he would kill the big ones. Why'd he come out? Touching the spirit ring on his index finger, Fei Run summoned the puppet Whitey in the next moment. This time, he still needed a bait to kill the Sandworm King, and it had better be strong. The puppet Whitey in his hand was a good choice. Croc croc. As soon as the puppet Whitey appeared, the surrounding air surged with an eerie and deathly stillness. It was as if an invisible death aura had spontaneously emerged. Although the puppet Whitey had suffered a great blow in the battle with the black-robed old man and the lightning snake tribe, not only was its skeleton severely damaged, but its strength had also dropped by a lot. However, it was very simple to restore a puppet. As long as it was refined with the blood essence of living creatures, it could be restored to its peak state, and it could even evolve to become stronger. Over the past few days, by using the 9 puppet arts, Fei Run had also continuously refined the blood essence of demonic beasts for Whitey. Finally, it was completely restored, and its strength was restored to the peak of the 3rd level martial master realm. Its broken skeleton had also been regenerated. For him, It might not be easy to obtain the blood essence of powerful martial artists, but the blood essence of magical beasts could be easily obtained. Any magical beast below the spirit rank would have a hard time escaping from Fei Ren's hands as long as they encountered him. Until now, Fei Ren had not encountered any stronger earth rank demonic beasts. Perhaps it was because he was at the periphery of the ancestral mausoleum and had not stepped into the depths of the mausoleum. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.